We're live. What's going on, everybody? You know the drill. Gotta do the thing. Come on in, get your drink, get ready, and let me spread the link. Hope everybody had a great week. So hope everybody's doing well this weekend. What's going on, Gliz? What's up, Mikey? Man, Gliz, you missed it last night, man. Right after, not long after you logged off, there was a guy that logged in that used to work at a dispensary as well. I was telling about our guy that knows it all. This should have been on, man. Should have stuck around. Pretty good time. Let me get some of these links shared. I'll share a bunch and then wait a little while and share some more. Share them too fast, they think I'm a bot. So everybody got going on this weekend. It's still too damn cold for me to ferment outside. 50 tonight, supposed to get in the 50s. Maybe 40. I think at 45. Let me double check that. Yeah, get port noise off of me. 48. Tomorrow 50 with a low. Towards the end of the week, 80s and 60s, that'll work. So looks like I'll be putting it off for a little while. Yeah, it gets down to 50s, man. I don't even waste my time. It'll get stuck. It goes slow. I don't mind it. Just if it was wine, it'd be a different thing. But I'm using the grains. I don't know with the yellow label that I'm gonna try to do. It'd probably be all right. I don't know about temperatures with it really. I haven't looked into the temperatures. I have been getting mixed reviews on the flavors of it. Some people are saying, it's good, and others saying it's not so good flavor wise. So we just have to try it and see. I've got a little bit of watermelon to do too. I'm going to put that off a little bit. I'm going to let these watermelons ripen up a little bit. Let them get a little bit riper. What's going on, Chris? Yeah, it's her. Renee's her name. It's a different Renee than the Candy Girl. Pretty interesting conversations last night. Yes, I'm tired. I was not having really odd sleeping hours and haven't been feeling real well last week. I was felt pretty good last night, but not so good today. But yeah, I think we all had a little too much drink last time. I know I did. Damon had a little bit of a buzz on him. I think Damon might have been speaking in tongues at one point. Let's see. Maybe get a post there later. So what's everybody got going on? A little too quick. Yeah, I tried to pace myself, man, but they just kept calling shots and shots and shots and drinking at 135 proof. That stuff gets you lit pretty quick for sure. Yeah, it'll work on you. But it's awful good. 35. It's a weighted Bloody Butcher's sour mash. It's pretty good. Jeff made it. Pretty good stuff. So I'm looking for some more watermelon. I probably didn't get enough watermelon, so I'm going to have to pick up some more. I'm going to go ahead and get this cut up and chunked up and put in the freezer, or maybe just put some pectokins on it, let it eat up all the slime. I can't give up too many secrets about what I really gonna do with it. Oh, what kind of message I just got? I don't know what that's about. Hanging off. What's going on, Dave? What's up? Give everybody time to trickle in. Saturday night. Everybody's dragging a little bit, man. It's starting to warm up, though. Festival season starting up. So y'all know that if y'all have any moonshine festivals or bourbon festivals or anything like that around you, get on the militia and let Damon know so he can add it to our calendar. We're trying to build up a calendar, and every year, kind of carry it through every year. What's going on, Tricky Brick? We're trying to build up the calendar of events that take place all over every year. That way people can make some plans. What about some tequila? Hell yeah, man. You like the tequila? It's pretty expensive buying the agave, but you can make some really good tequila at home. Surprisingly, really good tequila. But yeah, make some pretty good stuff. I was drinking on it last night. I don't want to drink too much of it. It's so damn good. I usually drink the good flavored stuff before I start getting drunk. But yeah, blue agave is a little bit expensive, so that's been the biggest hindrance for a lot of people to do. An agave or a tequila. Um, so it can get expensive if you have a good line on some that's pretty inexpensive. It's relatively easy to make. It's just but that blue agave, you got to have it, and it's expensive. And it's kind of like molasses would be for rum, blue agave is for tequila, right? So, but I think we got some pretty good tequila recipes if you're wanting to do a tequila run. Let me see what I got in my files section here. Documents. I should have bunches and bunches of pretty good recipes for tequila. I've got a bunch of files. Takes me a second to get to them. Documents, distillation. There we go. Tequila. See what we got here. Here's a good little PDF. Let me see what it says here. Looks like a, oh, it looks like it's got a little, it's like a little book or something. Man, that's cool. Yeah, I think I'll share that with y'all. Hope it's, yeah, it's a nice little book. Cool. So let me upload that to Sugarland's White Whiskey from Mark and Digger is like Crown Royal. I was just sipping on some aged tequila. It was let's see, here's a nice little book on it though that I'm going to post in the Moonshine Militia. It's called Tequila, Distilling the Spirit of Mexico. And it's a PDF and it's a little book about it, man. It looks, I've never seen it before. $2.15 a pound. That's pretty good. But yeah, this a little book on it, man. It's pretty cool. And I don't see anything on the book about money or anything else. Sanford Press. This is from 2014. So it's got a little age on it, but I mean, everything's the same. But I would say this covers pretty much the history of it, and I will also post a couple of recipes. Let me put that in here real quick. Hold on just a second. I'm on the militia page now, so just let me go to files and upload. And let me find it again. Okay, here we go. All right, just uploaded that to the file section. So if y'all are following along, you can jump in there and grab that. And let me share another file. Let me upload another file. Yeah, I did good. Distillation. Tequila. It's a Moonshine Life recipe that old JB shares. I don't know, he gets them from about everywhere. So we'll just throw this in there. Let me review that first though before I do. Actually, it's the Stampede Steels recipe. And everybody trying to claim it. It's pretty basic. I'm not even going to include it. Yeah, I don't like that. Stampede had a lot of stuff out, and if you're going to copy it, let the original person keep the rights. You know, just credit them. Don't try to put your name over top of theirs. That just sucks. Surprisingly, I don't have a lot of tequila recipes. That's, man. And all these files, that's it. Jeez. Not a lot. But I just posted it for you. There's a little book on there. Check it out, Jay. For the first timer, what would be the easiest type of steel to try building just for personal use? Keg steel. It's already built for you. All you got to do is take the spike out and be real careful. But yeah, take the spike out of it, detach all that, clean it out real well. And you got a steel. You got a 2-inch tri-clamp on the top of it. You can clamp on a little column. Hillbilly makes them. A lot of people make them little heads that you can mount to the top of the top of your keg. Just put it on the turkey fryer and you're ready to go, man. It's that damn easy. But that's probably probably one of the best for a starter. That and maybe some of these football beavers, but those are like a couple $100 for a 15, 18 gallon. Whereas a keg is like $35, $40 on YouTube or Facebook Marketplace. So tri-clamp, Phil Billy sells them. Make sure you tell him that it's the one for the keg, because one side of the clamp is flat, or the gasket on one side is flat. The other one has a ring. So you need that specific gasket, because most of the gaskets for the tri-clamps have a little ring on both sides, but you want it to be flat on against the keg, and then the ring against the top, the spool that goes up for your column or for your head. But yeah, they make columns and heads for them left and right. You can pick those up, pretty reasonably. You can have a keg still set up for about the same price, in the long run, after you get your little column and everything, condenser and everything taken care of. It's about the same size as a beaver, football steel. The beauty of the keg is it's a lot more durable. And sitting over in the corner, it looks like a keg, but it doesn't look like a moonshine still sitting there. Whereas, the beaver pot, it's got a little cap top on the pot. It's basically just a stock pot with a little sloped lid that has a ferrule on the top. So both look kind of nondescript. They're good for other things. I guess that the stock pots you can use for a big shrimp boil or a big crawdad boil if you wanted to do that. So there's a lot of uses you can get out of it. But Mike, I would say those would probably be the two easiest. Would be a beaver football steel or a keg steel. And it's real easy to set up a keg. Phil Billy's got videos on it after videos. He's got lots of stuff you haven't visited him, philbillymoonshine.com. You can see him on YouTube. Got tons of videos on kegs, and you can, attach the same thing to the beavers that you attach to the keg. You can buy the same stuff for them. And there's, him and Ian make a lot of stuff for those beavers and for keg steels, because it is probably the two best beginner setups that you can get. Each have their pluses and minuses, but both of them are solid choices for a first timer. Now, if you have a little bit more money in the wallet and you're pretty handy with soldering, maybe step up to buying a roll of copper, and I've uploaded some plans for cutouts, I guess you can, templates for copper steels that are on the Moonshine Militia files. I think it's a 12 gallon, but you can scale it up, make it bigger, scale everything up bigger proportionately, and make it a little bit larger. But I think a sheet of copper is a few $100. So if you're handy, for a few $100, you could hand you out a pretty nice, decent, good sized steel, and a little thumper to go with it. So it's just according to how handy you are. If you're good with cutting and soldering, there's a lot of, I've posted those. There's other templates out there that are pretty handy. I do recommend kind of getting some poster board or some cardboard or something like that, kind of cutting them out first, and that way you'll have something to kind of wrap and size and tape together and make sure everything's going to work, and then you can use those as your templates, right? What's going on, Craig? What's up, Steven? Sugarland's white whiskey from Mark and Diggers like Crown Royal. Well, they got tariffs on it. I'm just kidding. That's funny. I am sipping on some wheat. Well, I was sipping on some tequila, but this is some 135 proof wheated Bloody Butcher sour mash. I need to get me some more of my peach there too. This stuff's pretty good. Damn, 135 works on an old man. Got me speaking in tongues here for a while. What's going on, Donald? Good to see you, brother. What's up, Scott? That's a good price, brother. Yeah, damn good price. So who was it was asking about that? Let me scroll back here. Well, I know somebody asked. All right, let's scroll back here. Oh, Jay did. Jay Jeremiah. Okay. So Scott, where you getting it for $2? I know, but most everywhere I look at it, man, it's expensive. I know that there's a place called Websteront that has some pretty decent prices. They wholesale, but they kill you in the shipping. I think the first time you order, you get free shipping. So if you order from them, get buckets upon buckets, and get the free shipping. I don't know if they offer that anymore, but yeah, tequila, it's not real hard to make. It's surprisingly easy to make. It's very similar to like a rum. It's just following the recipe and fine tuning it, right? So find a good recipe. I'll have to dig around. I'm really shocked that that's the only recipe that I've got. I've got over 1,000 files, and that's the only recipe I got for tequila. But I do have some buddies that make it, so I'll try to hit them up for one of their recipes, and we'll get it uploaded to the militia page, and maybe Scott will share his. What's happened to everybody? I don't know. They've gone to hell in a handbag, man. It starts happening, man, when summer comes and school's out. People got kids now, and they got going on vacations, and this is, I guess, about the first, not graduations. A lot of graduations going on this weekend, and a lot of fun summer stuff getting ready to get started. A lot of festivals getting ready to get cranking out. Already been quite a few in the spring, but summer festival season's getting ready to get started, and it usually slows down a little bit in the summertime. People get a little bit more active. I've been on here. Wintertime, everybody's kind of holed up in the house and on the PC a little bit more, but yeah, they'll trickle in. What's the tastiest flavor of moonshine? Now, I will say I haven't been much on post flavoring and doing a lot of flavoring and stuff growing up, and I know recently it's a big thing to flavor and make a neutral flavor. I used to be a bartender and stuff, so I know how to mix a drink, but to me that's not as much distilling as it is bartending or barista, whatever. But as far as non post flavor, just a particular, if I were going to call it a flavor, I enjoy a lot of brandies. I enjoy a lot of fruit brandies. I enjoy making wine, but I don't really consider like a flavor. That's like a fruit. But maybe like apple pie. If that, I guess that's a flavor that I do a little post on. I like adding some little cinnamon and apple. to the apple brandy to make it an apple pie. So I'd have to say probably an apple pie is probably one of my more my favorite. I love apple juice. I've always been real fond of apple juice and drinking apple juice. So um, I'd probably say I enjoy doing that as much as anything. There's some peach, some post peach that I've dabbled with. It was okay. Um, I only did that because the peach that I didn't turn out this time as well. So I tried some of the concentrate that I was using for infusing to do a little bit of post to see if I couldn't get some more peach flavor out of it. And it turned out okay. It wasn't anything special. Um, I'd say apple pie probably. I like a decent little apple pie. But like the flavors and stuff. I mean, I like drinking some of them. I know Damon's got this sour patch watermelon, sour watermelon stuff. He calls it a sour patch. Man, that stuff's good. It's sweet and tart at the same time. It's got a little bite. I enjoy that. There's a lot of different ones. Phil Billy makes a ton of good flavored stuff. Him and Ian turn out a lot of shoot. But I mean, popcorn. He got some buttered popcorn, John. That's crazy. Good. A lot of different flavors. Phil Billy and Ian turn out. I don't think I've tasted one that I don't like, but uh, those are for sipping. It's not something that I'd want to sit and get drunk on because all that sugar and stuff, man, just makes for a pretty bad hangover for an old man. So I try to stick to the clear. Nectar Pina. All I can find out to top off that still is a condenser. Oh, for a keg? No, man. Philbilly's got he's got columns. It's just basically a sight glass with a tall spool, of sight glass. You can put your copper mesh inside the sight glass there. He's got plates if you want to do a plate thing. I mean, they can special order anything. But they've got whiskey heads that fit on top of them, with lint arms that can go into jar rigs or thumpers. It's once you start using tri-clamp fittings, really the sky's the limit. You can get very creative. Yeah, the blue yeast is definitely what you want to use on your, and it takes a little bit warmer. It's definitely something you want to do when temperatures are up a little bit. If you're uh, down south and it's 80 already, you're fine. But up here where we getting 50-degree nights, it might be a little bit early unless you're gonna do something to kind of heat it up. But yeah, you can get a column on eBay. You can get them on Amazon, but I always go to what's going on, Mark. I always go to Fuel Billy. Yeah, most of us have run stuff with butyric. Butyric is an organic acid. It's one of many that's natural in fermentation. It's the one that smells like puke. It's a natural acid. Um, it's what's in our stomach that helps us break down food. So it's what's used to help break down what we eat. And when you it smells like vomit. So if you have a mash that's got that vomit smell, you have to let it run its course with butyric. If you run it while it's vomiting, smelling, it's not going to be so good. So you just got to let it run its course. Um, there's lots of different acids that can show, like lactic acid, a butyric acid, acetic acid. There's lots of organic acids that occur in distillation. Sometimes some of them get a foothold and take off on you, and it's just, I don't know what causes it to be worse in some mashes than others. And you can do the same mash over and over, and it will never do it again, or so it's just kind of one of those. I don't know if I'm sure when we talk about a lot of things that stress yeast, You know, maybe the stressful environment is helping, you know, to create the butyric. It's something I've not really done a lot of research on, but I do know that when you smell it, it's a vomit smell, and and when you smell it, you just have to let it go. If you let it go and let it run its course, it can actually turn out some pretty good flavors, believe it or not. Some, you know, really fruity, sweet flavors, but you just got to let it do its thing, you know, because everybody that I've talked to and my experience is if you run it while it stinks, it's just not good. So let it run its course. Looking for anyone selling a 35-gallon pot. Well, we'll keep you in mind, brother. Definitely keep you in mind. Might be best just to hammer one out, bro. Or get you a big 55-gallon stainless drum. I know that ain't copper, but I think Philby's got some stainless drum. But yeah, get you a sheet of copper, hammer it out, bro. They're not that hard to do. What's going on, Kenny? Blue corn, Tucker's white corn, rye, and barley. That sounds good. Yeah, I like that blue. Now you going with the Ohio blue or the Hopi? What's up, Dave? What's going on, brother? What's up, Colton? I just posted to that pot. All right, brother. Yeah, there's yeah, look around for kegs. That's a great starting keg. They're very durable, you know, and you can put about any good little column on it, and it doesn't get a little flimsy. Your Weber's a thin stainless, and the lids can only handle so much, and you got to start supporting things if you get a whole lot of weight up there. But kegs can hold quite a bit more. Have a buyer's account with a company that sells dextrose agave and black pearl molasses with West warehouses near me. So that's awesome. You know how? What's going on down in Arkansas? Trying to finish 24-gallon or 20-gallon corn run. Awesome, brother. Yeah, I was down there in your neck of the woods last year. Had a pretty good time in Clinton, Arkansas to festival. Had a real good time down there. Do I prefer to run my tails back in my pot or thumper? Well, you know, that's a good question. I usually do it in the pot. I don't run a thumper all the time or as often as I used to. Um, I'm either using a column uh, or an infuser these days. You know, I don't really. So I would have to say pot probably now. Years ago, it had been thumper. You know, I always did it in the thumper. But but now I'm running more column and more on uh, in an infuser. So I don't. I just put them in the pot. Hello, Miss Lisa. How are you tonight? What's the best yeast to use? Well, Matt, that depends on what we got going on, man. And that's, you know, it's 100% opinion. There's no fact, no right or wrong answer for this question, but there is, you know, a lot of opinions, and it really boils down to what you got going. You know, I'd say with like a grain, red yeast work fine. Data yeast works fine. EC1118 works fine. Kveki yeast works fine. So any of those yeasts are excellent yeast to use. Just each will give kind of a unique flavor. So kind of experiment around with different yeast to get different flavors. Uh, a lot of people just like a simple old bread yeast, and they, you know, I know some big distillers that use simple bread yeast. You know, they've got it their own little concoction of it, but that's basically what they're using. A lot of other places really swear by the Quebec. You know, the Quebec is really good stuff. It's fast. Um, Daily yeast is pretty inexpensive. It's pretty neutral, and pretty inexpensive. But once you get a good yeast going, there's ways that you can save that yeast and carry it from one fermentation over to the next without even sour mashing or anything like that. You can save some of your yeast sediments in the bottom of your mash at the end and just dump it in the next one to get it started. It'll help give you nutrients as well. But like when you start getting into brandies and stuff like that, Matt, you'll want to kind of lean toward wine yeast, and things of that nature. So they're a little bit lower temperature. That's another thing to consider. Some yeast will give you different flavors at different temperatures. So if they run higher, they'll give you some fruity notes. Lower, they'll give you a different sweetness. Um, but it's interesting, and it's something that you just want to experiment with, and try the same basic mash and just use different yeast, each time, and kind of experiment around and see what you want. But try to keep everything the same. If your temperatures are fluctuating, then the outcome will probably fluctuate. But like with some wines and stuff, I'm pretty fond of the Red Star, like with dark fruits, like plums and dark grapes and dark fruits. I'll use what's called a Red Star Premier Rouge. Real good tasting yeast for dark fruits. And for lighter fruits and for like my grappa and for peaches and lighter stuff, I'll use what's called a Premier Blanc from Red Star. Really good yeast. I really like the flavors that I get from it. It finishes well. Um, Pretty all around good yeast. I know there's a lot of winemakers out there that probably laugh and they have more sophisticated wine yeast that they use that are probably a lot harder to find and get. Um, I know a lot of people use EC1118, which is or the D11116 Lalvins, which are champagne-like yeasts. Lots of different yeasts, and like the D47. So if you like have meads and stuff, there's specific yeasts that are geared towards work better with honeys. Um, there's yeast that work with certain rums better because it works. Molasses has quite a bit of unfermentable sugar, so in some of those rum yeast, they add a little invertase to help convert some of those unfermentables into fermentables, so it finishes out a little drier than just a standard yeast might. So or like we were just talking earlier about when you make a tequila, that blue yeast is really what you want to use. It's top notch, but again, warmer temperatures. So a lot of your bread yeast and your daily yeast and things like that, they like a little warmer temperature, ambient temperature, and mash temperature in the 80s. Whereas some of your wine yeast like it in the 70s, and it's going to be an extended time. You really want to extend your time on your brandies and take your time. And unlike grains, hell, I can take a Quebec yeast and have a grain finished in 3 or 4 days. Same thing with this yeast out of this is Firm Solutions. It's a FSI 927. It's a proprietary yeast. It finishes really quickly and well. Good flavors. They make a lot of good stuff there. It was given to me by a friend. I'm gonna try as soon as it gets warm enough. The Yellow Label Angel yeast is an interesting yeast that will convert a lot of your grains and stuff without gelatinizing them and doing grain conversion. So that's an interesting yeast to try to experiment with as well. But there's no right answer for it, brother. There's just no right answer for that. They're all different kinds, and it boils down to opinions. But it's good to experiment, try different yeast. I don't think people should get in a rut and just use the same yeast all the time. Try to expand it and try different yeast, and it adds a little fun to the hobby. Hopi Blue, yeah, it'll be good. To make peach moonshine, do you make a grain mash with your peaches, or just use it in peach? No, it's not a grain mash. It's considered it's a brandy mash. So anytime that and they don't call it a mash when you're using grains, we call that a mash. When you're using fruits and making wines for your brandies, they call it a must. And then when you're making like tequila or sugar shine or rum or something like that, and you just got basically syrups and sugars and waters that you're using with some nutrients and stuff, they call those washes. But most peach moonshine starts with a peach brandy, and that's basically just a peach wine. You take the fruit, you break it down, you put some pectic enzymes in there and help break that down, and you bring it up to a certain temperature that you add your yeast, and give it some nutrients. You let it run its course. You siphon off the clears, and you run those. Now, while you're doing that, yes, sir, you definitely want to take some peaches and put in your thumper. Basically, when you make a brandy with the peaches, it gives it the flavor, right, the taste. But when you use the infuser, it adds a lot of nose. Okay, so it'll give you a lot of nose, and a lot of times when you're drinking stuff, you don't realize it, but you're smelling it as you drink it, and that's half the flavor. So if you get a good nose and you get a little flavor from it, the more peach that you can use, the better. And if you can use all peaches and no sugar, it'll be even better. But that can get expensive. But yeah, it's definitely make you a peach brandy, and from there distill it into a nice peach. Or I'm sorry, make you a nice peach smash and then distill it into good peach brandy. But yeah, you can put your peaches in thumpers. When you're using a thumper though, just best to puree any of your fruits or anything that you infuse with. It's best to blend them up and put them in there. If you put them in whole, the steam and the vapors only really make contact with the outside of the peaches, right? But if you puree it, it's going through all that mush, and it's having to go through all of it, and you get better contact with the surface area. Hell yeah, brother. I used bread yeast for decades before Amazon and the internet and the ability to get, better yeast. Growing up in Eastern Kentucky, there were a lot of choices. Good old Fleischmann's was a staple, brother. Plan to fill another 5-gallon 2 white oak barrel with some blue corn, trucker white, rye, barley. Awesome, brother. Firm Pro 48. That sounds good, man. I want to try some of that. 71B, yeah, 71B. That's Laubin. I think that's also good with meads, if I'm not mistaken. It's a lot like the 74. Yeah. Yes, sir. You certainly can, brother. That's when you make a brandy, you're making a wine. So, and that's why when you learn to make wine, you'll make better brandy than just learning to make like a mash for a shine, right? Or a must for a shine. I tend to call it all mashes too. Um, but if you're making, just a must for shine, a lot of people cut a lot of corners that winemakers don't. So to make the best brandies, I recommend, following what a lot of these winemakers do, because the better the wine, the better the brandy. That's all there is to it. And you got to make that mash or that must good enough to drink, right? So, yeah. It's definitely, you can definitely get you some boxes of wine and run it. A lot of people do that. What's going on, Mr. Scully? How you been, brother? I just gave some mash. The guy was freaking out because of lactose. So I got most of it out. Yeah, man. Lactose is only really a problem. We've talked a lot about lactose. Lactose is only a problem if it happens early and it decreases your alcohol production. It competes with yeast for sugar. Lactobacillus is a bacteria, and it'll get it. It's like yeast. It's all over everything. So if if you don't pour that hot 160 plus degree water over your fruit, your grain, or whatever that you've got, and it's got to be 160 degrees plus. So it's got to be hotter than that. If you dump that over all your fruits and grains that you're using, and you don't add a lot cooler like we do with our malts a lot of times, you'll pretty much kill off most of your lactose. Anytime you get that lacto infection, though, you need to clean your equipment really good so you don't start out with it the next time. You can save it, you can save it in a jar and keep it in the fridge and introduce it late in fermentation. Gives a good creamy taste and texture. It's good, but it's just not something that you want to have starting out. So yeah, I mean, it'll be fine as long as you're got plenty of alcohol in your mash. You'll be fine. You got my sugar shine where it needs to be after 6 to 7 teaspoons. Baking soda pH was 3.6. Um, Scully, if it's 3.6 and you're near the end of fermentation, I wouldn't even fool with adding the baking soda, brother. 3.6 is okay for most of the yeasts are designed really to handle acidic environments. Definitely what it's designed for. You don't want to take it up to 5.7 anyway. 5.2, 5.3 is as high as you ever want to go. Um, but yeah, it's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. But from now on, if it's towards the end and you started out, let's say 1070 or 1080, and it's 1020 and you're 3.6, don't worry about it, man. Just let it finish, especially if it's warmer and everything's working well. Let it go. It'll be fine. Um, Maybe next time throw you in some of those oyster shells we talk about. Boil them up, clean them up real good, and uh, and and that'll help. That'll help buffer it a little bit, and it's not going to prevent it, but and it won't. It's not a quick fix like a baking soda. But if that's all the baking soda that you added and that helped you all you needed, you'd be fine, brother. But it'll foam up, so be careful when you add that baking soda because that shit'll foam up crazy on you. You got to check it out. The cameras. They get cameras all around, man. That gives me a little warning when a cat moves. That's probably what it was. Uh, Going back to your tails question. Did the tails bring good flavor over when it was in the thumper? Um, Really, it's not as much for flavor as it is just to basically increase production. Tails generally don't have the best flavor, to start with. You got fused oils in there to deal with and stuff. But it's just not bad either, and it's easy to separate the ethanol from the fused oils and stuff in the tails, and there's generally a lot of alcohol still in them, and it's easy to separate those. A little easier to separate those than like alcohol and acetone and some of your um, stuff that comes off in your heads in four shots. So flavor wise, not a whole lot, um, but it just increases your volume. It adds quite a bit to your volume, so you get quite a bit more production. But if you have like a jar rig after your thumper, um, yeah, that'll help your flavor, and it'll help take whatever tails are in there. They're basically neutral. They don't have a lot of flavor. I guess some brandy tails do. I try not to rerun and rerun. Do a lot with brandy tails. There's some question about um, the content of a lot of those. Uh, so I don't really rerun a lot of that over and over again. But like on grains, yeah, it's not got a lot of flavor. It's gonna carry over fine. It's just more production. It increases your production. So instead of 5 jars, you're going to get 6.5. With that about the same flavors. So the corn in the barrels junk for sour mash. No, I mean, is that where you've got your lactose? I mean, you can kill it off. You can kill the lactose off, but you're going to kill, everything else alive in there. So, you're going to have to add more mash, or I mean, more yeast because you're killing off the yeast and everything. But I mean, but yeah, lactose is something you really don't want to run into when you're doing a sour mashing. It will create headaches. So that's one reason to kind of have the um, to be clean and use hot water and clean it up real good. Gravity was still 105 after 8 days. Yeah, you got to do what you got to do, brother. Yeah, I say at that point it'd be fine to do. The next time, get the the little what's the hell, the cheesecloth, and wrap some of those uh, oyster shells in it. Get your bag of oyster shells at your feed supply store. They use it for chickens and use it gardening and everything else. Helps keeps chicken calcium content up for their eggs. Makes good strong eggs. But get your big bag of them. They sell big bags for like $15, 45-pound bag or something. Um, Boil a bunch up at a time. Dry them out real good, and I boil them to kill any bacteria or get any salts and stuff that may still be in there. I don't know how well they clean them from the places where they come from, but yeah, that's and put them in some cheesecloth and just tie it up. A couple of handfuls, big old wad in there, uh, and it'll help buffer it and keep your pH from dropping. It won't raise pH, but it will keep it from dropping below a certain level, because once it becomes so acidic, it starts eating away at the calcium carbonate, and it kind of buffers itself, so it neutralizes those acids as they happen. And it'll help cut down on those butyric acids too. Shay just ordered a Weber 13.2 with the thumper and worm away from the pot. Any suggestions on how much mash I should mix up for a single run? All right, 13.2 gallons, probably to the lid. So you're going to probably be running a 10-gallon mash, so mash for 10 gallons. And they'll leave you, pretty good space in there, because it's going to foam up and bubble up. You don't want a lot to puke. Another thing is on those 3-pot Webers, you got to watch over tightening so you don't crack those gaskets, those plastic gaskets that come with them. Um, if you tighten them too tight, they'll break on you, and then you're just gonna have to go to the store and get some different gaskets. I think Fibbley's got some. If not, he can order them. Um, but there's some modifications that I'd recommend making to the. That's why I always steer people to the football steel. And what's going on, Mr. Bishop? Good to see you on here, man. I ain't talk to you in a minute. What's going on, Andrew? But yeah, with the Vivers, you're gonna, there's some modifications that you're gonna want to make, and some improvements that you can make to tighten them up a little bit, make them a little less leaky, make them a little more efficient, and get a little better product out of it. But yeah, you'll be fine. I think I think Phil's got some videos, and Mr. Bishop, he makes quite a few videos as well. If you guys don't know Alan, great guy, very extremely knowledgeable, probably one of the most knowledgeable people that I know. Commercial distiller extraordinaire, a historian, knows a lot about the histories, and they do quite a bit of stuff at George Washington. Uh, what's what's it called? Not the what's the name of the still up there? Dang on it! On the tip of my tongue. Yeah, I think the football still, if you can get the little beverage with the football still, that's definitely the way to go. But I'm trying to think of George Washington's the place for the distilling. What's the name of that place? You and Amanda and all of them meet up there every year. Yeah, I'd love to go to that place and check it out someday. Definitely. But yeah, the little football stills are awesome. But the three pots will work fine. The little actually I love Mount Vernon. That's it. Yeah, I, I was thinking that place on the coastline where everybody goes. But yeah, the little beverage, the beauty of the football still is that you've got a decent sized pot with the ferrule on the top. So you can use the football for whiskeys. It's a little rectification head. You can stuff the copper mesh inside your football, your rashi greens, whatever you want for uh, reflux and for cleaning off the sulfides and sulfites, and so that helps a lot. The little canister filters that come with them are okay. I kind of prefer. I've got a decent little shotgun condenser I use on mine. I prefer it over the little canister that they have, but it's not bad. It's not a bad little filter. One thing I like about the canister filters, it's enclosed, so you can pump more water through it and keep a better regulated temperature because you don't have to worry about it overflowing. Right, so your flow rate you can control. You can have a high flow rate pretty much as you want until it just blows the hoses off. Right, um, so you can increase your flow through them and force water through it instead of just having it trickle in and leaking out, through an exit pipe. So that's one thing that I really prefer, with the football steels. And, you know, you can take that football off and you can slap a column on there, and you can take that off. You can slap on a big, whiskey head. You can take that off and slap on a Mr. Fusion. You can get some deflagmation going on. It's just very versatile. It's very versatile, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. What's going on, Andrew? Yeah, I agree. I think for the money and for what it is, it's probably, it would be a go-to. That and the cake steel, they're kind of both very, very handy. Cake steel, if you know somebody that can weld you some ferrules in, you can do pretty much the same thing with the keg, except you can't put it on a stovetop, right? You're going to have to use a burner, or you're going to have to put some ferrules in the side and go with some electric elements, or of course you can put it on fire as well. But the little Weber football, you can put it on the stovetop. You can put it on a turkey burner. You can, of course, add electric elements to the side if you want. Another great thing that it has, a lot of people don't utilize, it's got a false bottom. So if you want to, kind of sparge off your grains and put your little grain bag in there, you kind of distill on the grain, something a lot of people can't do. So it's fun to experiment with, and it's a very versatile setup. Definitely. But yeah, Alan and them go to Mount Vernon every year, and they do a recreating back in the colonial times of how it was done, and they make a run. I guess a few times a year. And I know Alan's involved with some other guys. Um, can't remember their names off the bat, but they do a lot of recreation. And I mean, they get all dressed up in period garb and do like old absinthe. I think there was one. Who are those guys that you do that with, Alan? That here in Kentucky, I can't remember the guys' names, but y'all did that absinthe from way back in the early 1900s, maybe late 1800s. Uh, absinthe that was very interesting. Yeah, I'd like to get Alan in here maybe some night and have him as a guest to sit and talk to a lot of beginners. It's he's a wealth of knowledge and he's a great guy, all around great guy. But yeah, I envy him doing a lot of that. Recreating a lot of stuff like that looks like a lot of fun. Period garb and everything you're using, is from that era. That's cool as shit to me, man. That's awesome. Yeah, brother. But yeah, it's there'll be a few things that you're going to have to do to that. The condenser that's on it is pretty much grossly undersized, so you're really going to have to keep up with keeping it cold. Generally you want 60 to 75 degree water for your condenser. It's going to be almost impossible to balance that in that bever, that little teeny pot that comes with it with that little coil. Okay. What you want to do is get you a bunch of water bottles. I don't have one handy here. Just regular water bottles. Freeze them in the freezer, and they should sit down right in the middle of that pot, and get a bunch ready because you'll go through a bunch of them with 13 gallon. But you can just set it in the middle of that, and it'll help keep that temperature regulated the way you need it. But as you can afford to, add on to it, and maybe add you a little bit bigger diameter plumbing from the pot all the way over to your thumper. The thumper, the way it's set up and the way it comes, it can be either a thumper or a slobber box. Um, I'd say for a beginner, I would use it as a slobber box because a lot of people tend to overfill their pots. If you boil water much, just boiling water is going to foam up like crazy. So imagine a beer, okay? Yeah, you're going to do a beer, you're going to get a lot of foam. So you can degas it if you want, do some things like that, but really, leaving yourself plenty of headspace in there, and that little slobber box will help catch a little puke too if you get a little bit too hot. So it'll work well for that. But work on your plumbing and increase the size of your plumbing on that. Helps a lot. Makes it more efficient and definitely get you a little bit better of a worm for that, and increase the size of your worm. Get you a little 5 gallon bucket. Get you some 1/2 inch copper. Don't buy copper sticks. Get the refrigerant type copper. It's already comes rolled up in a roll. You buy it in the box. It's coiled. So all you have to do basically is tighten up the coils a little bit. Be careful, but it's a lot easier to work with than like a stick. It's just really tough to bend those sticks and make good bends. And people fill them with sand or pressurized air. And I've heard so many things, man. But it's so much easier itself just to buy a box of coiled copper. It's not that much more expensive. If it's more expensive, and it's so much easier to work with. But yeah, just 10 gallons, what you'll want with a 13.2. But yeah, as you can make some improvements to it. It works, and it'll work a lot better, and it's something that you can uh, work with. And once you decide to go with a bigger pot, you'll have that to use for a thumper. So you can modify it for that. What's going on, Richard? That's cool. Well, you know where to go to get you one of those. Yeah, I love my little football steel. I use it during the winter time and on my stove top. They work great on the stove top if you've got a specific type of stove top. Now, what you have to look at on when you do stove top distilling You don't want a stove that's going to cycle heat on and off, heat on and off, heat on and off. So, yeah, Martha's Vineyard is what I was thinking earlier. Yeah, that's why I was thinking Martha's Vineyard, but yeah. But yeah, you don't want a stove that kind of cycles heat. So if you could get, I've got an old Frigidaire. It's a glass top. It's one of those infrared ones. And once I get to like 8.5, 9 and high, it doesn't cycle anymore. It stays red the whole time and does not cycle on and off at all. So I get a good constant heat out of it. And if you have one that does that like that, it's fine. Uh, but if you have one, you can boil water and see, test it. But if it starts cycling on and off, it's probably not going to be the best stove for you. Gas stoves are excellent, but the old coil stoves, those are bad for cycling on and off too. So, but it just depends on the stove you have. I know my little old Frigidaire, it came with the damn house I bought. It was old when I bought the house. And that was 15. I think it's probably 25 years old, but it works great. And so I'm real happy with that. And it's a good even heat. It's got 5 burners, and I've got an 18.5, so it covers about all 3 burners. I do the front burner is like a 3200 watt, the back one's like a 19 or 2200 watt, and then it's got a little warmer. And I just crank all 3 of those full until I get a drip. Then I'll back off a little bit on the front, or on the front right and front back, right front, right back elements. I'll cut a little bit back on those. I'll leave that warmer cranked out. But it works out real well. I get a drip in about 45 minutes to an hour. I'm done 15 gallons. I put in that 18.5, and I can run 15 in about 4.5 hours to where I'm hitting my tails, and another couple of hours, 3 hours if I, run it all the way, running my tails out, so I can do those. When using propane to heat, is there any way, tricks to do it so you don't? Yeah, the best first and foremost is knowing your burner. Um, having like one of those chicken or turkey fryer burners that focuses. It's got like a cone, and it focuses every bit of heat in like an area on the bottom of the pot like that. Those are excellent for heating oil. Those are excellent for boiling water, and they suck for cooking mash. So if you can get what's called a banjo burner, and it's big around. I use 10-inch banjo burners, and they have lots of little holes and lots of little blue flames instead of one fucking jet, burner that you can hear 5 miles away. Sounds like a 747 getting ready to take off. Compared to the banjo burners with lots of smaller spread out flames, that's really what you want. You get you a banjo burner, and it'll distribute your heat a lot more evenly. But if you're worried about scorching, you can use the steep method. You don't have to cook those grains for an hour and a half. You can steep, and what we mean by steeping is get you a cooler, or get you a barrel that's insulated. You can get like a 55-gallon barrel and put a little foam in the bottom of it, some of that solid 1-inch foam, just put in the bottom, set you 40 or 30 some gallon inside that, and get you spray foam and spray around that and fill all around it. And man, it'll hold heat for longer than you really want it to, man. You almost, after you do that, you almost want to get a chiller, because you're waiting for the damn thing to cool off, but it'll hold the heat real well. But it's almost like you're waiting forever and ever and ever for it to cool off. But that's a good thing, because you unless you're in a hurry, which isn't a good thing when we do this. So you get your pretty good rest temperatures. You get there's different times that you need to hold certain temperatures to get proteins and protein haze. If you're a beer maker, you probably know about that. But yeah, there's a saccharification range that you want to hold temperature, so it helps get that conversion going. But back to converting, just pour 200 boiling water over your grains, and keep so that I've got 20 gallons boiled, okay, and I know that I'm going to use 20 in my 50 pounds of corn, okay. So I've got 50 pounds of corn. I dump 15 gallons over that, and I stir the shit out of it over my cracked corn. I stir it, and I let it sit, and as soon as it gets down to about 190, 185, I'll dump a little bit more of that boiling hot water in there and keep that temp up. And that'll help it gelatinize pretty quickly, about 90 minutes. Just keep the temp up for 90 and use that, keep adding water to keep that temp up in that cooler or insulated barrel or whatever. So you'll never scorch doing it that way, and you never have to worry about scorching. And then as it gets cooler, you can add your malts and any other grains that you want as you step mash down. But yeah, steeping method works real well. You just have to have something that'll hold those temps and retain some of that water back to help you maintain temps. Where did I do that? Sags back when I ran of every 13 to, oh yeah 10 gallons is about what you want to run for sure. Yep. Have a 30-gallon pot still I bought from Chris Kelly a few years ago. My question is, do you think I could run a 10-gallon mash to experiment with recipes? Yeah, it's fine. It is a lot of headspace in there. There is a lot of room, but if it's it may affect how much you get out of it, but I don't think that it's going to be a big danger until you start doing things like running higher proof in there with that small amount. So say if it were just a mash in there at 10 gallons and it's a 10% ABV mash, 12%, I say you're just fine. If you're adding a lot of tails and you're rerunning and it's a second run or something like that, you've got 80 proof in there, then I would probably want to have a little bit more to be on the safe side. But that's one of the reasons it's always nice to have a little bit smaller steel. And when you do start out with a small steel and you get a bigger steel, don't get rid of your small steel, because it's great for, when you got a 30-gallon steel, you're running 25 and you're getting, it's nice to be able to run smaller amounts, in your smaller steels and not have to, add a bunch of tails or water it down or do things like that, or have a lot of headspace, which takes away from your efficiency. So it's always nice to have a, if you got a 30-gallon, have a little 10 or a 15, a little keg or something to run along with it, definitely is nice. So yeah, get your little keg still and run that 10 in it. Rigged up a 2-inch bulkhead out of it. Okay. Out of your 13.2. Cool. I bought a thumper and worm from Phil Billy. Absolutely. Yep. And it makes it so much easier, to add, to modular, the modularity of it, to add jar rigs, to add thumpers, to add, deflegmators. I'm trying to think of Wayne's. Oh, I just said it a minute ago. He's got the shocker, and he's got the shocker is his. I think it's a condenser type defleg with it. It's got the coil on the outside, and then the other one, I just said it a minute ago. This is my old man mind. Come on now, help me. Well, shit. The shocker and the the stainless doesn't want to drill very easily at all, and it's really good to clamp it down to a piece of wood or something like that to keep it from moving around and get a really good quality bit. I'm still trying to think what that's called. It's the shocker and the it's his little head that's got the defleg built into it, and I can't remember what the damn thing's called, but it's really nice. But anyway, you can add a lot of different things like that to it. and the sky's the limit on the different attachments that you can have. It's phenomenal. It's definitely the way to go. You'll never paste again. If you've ever pasted a still, you know what I'm talking about. It's a pain in the ass, and it's even bigger pain in the ass to clean up afterwards. It gets hard as a rock. So um, Mr. Fusion, thank you. Richard gets the gold star for the day. Man, I just said that a minute ago too, and I can't remember it. Man, my mind is going. It's going. Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, we'll get you set up. But like John's talking about, putting a bulkhead, you can put that bulkhead two on there, and you don't have to go with the two. Out of a 13, you can go with a 1.5. But there's a lot of things out of a two, that a lot of 2 inch. 2 inch seems to be a good standard, and it's definitely not too large for a 13, 15, 18. I don't know if I do it on like an 8 or a 10. I think 13, 15, 18 are definitely good candidates for adding that bulkhead. If you don't know bulkhead fittings, basically gasket on top, bottom, tighten up. They're solderless, weldless. They work great. If you get a good quality one, if you get a good drill, a good hole drilled without a lot of junk, you have to clean it up a little bit, but um, it's really tough. That Bever stainless is surprisingly hard. Everybody that's drilled them out, they're like, "Holy shit! I didn't realize it was going to be this big of a pain in the ass." So, you know, uh, regular hole saws for just normal steel might not work so well. Maybe diamond. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with that, man. Some diamond bits probably do the job, but I mean, those are expensive. And just a regular hole saw, yeah, diamond's definitely the way to go. Just the regular hole saw, it's gonna be tough, man. It's gonna be rough. Yeah, Frank's getting back to answering. I think it's Kimbo. Yeah, Kimbo that asked that earlier about his barrel. Yeah, yeah, you definitely keeping everything sterile helps, especially once you get that lacto infection. Just clean everything up. Um, Try not to use wood spoons and stuff like that because it's porous. So try to use stainless and scrub it down. Temperature will help kill it. Uh, you can chemically kill it with potassium metabisulfates, which is probably the last thing you want to do, but if you have to. But yeah, after you finish that with that barrel, hot water, good hot water sprayed all around it, and let it soak. Uh, Sanistar, that'll help kill it. Carbide stainless hose saw. Well, that if it's made for it, that'd probably be a good way to go as well. Diamond's what I've got and used, and it's tough. Oh, you do? I mean, you got to clean it out, bro. And if you use, like a lot of people like to use these wood barrels, once you get in the wood barrel, it's a little tougher to get out. That's why I don't like using wood for stirring and use paddles. I see people using these paddles like a boat paddle, and I look at it and it's real shiny on the handle, but the paddle part's dull, and I'm like, you do realize that all the lacquer that was on there has been thinned out by the alcohols in your mash and is now in your mash and you're drinking that shit, right? Okay, don't do it. Don't. Yeah, it might look cool, but yeah, don't do it. They make plenty of good stainless stuff out there, or you know, yeah, you don't want to drink that stuff. Little shellac, never hurt anybody, right? Well, thank you. Yeah, high proof will kill it. The sun bleaching it will kill it. Sure will. Star sand. That's what I was trying to think of. Star sand. That works on it pretty well. But just temperature, you know. Definitely works. But yeah, getting back to the Vevers, you know, the 3-pot Vevers, since that is, you know, and we've probably got a lot of people watching that use those or have used them or thinking about getting them. When you do, you're going to do it. You're going to have a little bit of work ahead of you to get them right. You know, I mean, you can use them as is, straight from there, uh, but over time those gaskets are going to break. Yeah, they do. They look real good hanging on the wall with an autograph or something on it. You know, that's the way to have it. Or they look great with your canoe. But yeah, I don't like using wood anything for mixing and all that. I guess you know, if you want to use it to help carry yeast over from one to the next, but you know, people use yeast logs for that if you want to use wood. Um, but yeah, get you a stainless paddle, or get you. Well, I use just an old mud mixer. I know it probably had nickel on it at one time. It's just straight metal now. It's not galvanized or anything like that. It doesn't rust real badly, so I keep it clean. Um, and that's what I use, you know, and it's worked. And you know, I don't think I'm getting very many metal ions or anything bad out of that, but they're very handy. But you can get the stainless ones, and they're a little bit more expensive, and that's what I would definitely recommend, the stainless mud mixers. And get the long ones. That way, when you're using your barrel, you can get down in there and deep and stir shit. They're like 2 feet long, I guess. Yeah, yeah. The one I've got a little diamond kit, and specifically bought for that purpose, and they work okay. But it is a lot of work, and you definitely want to clamp it down to wood and just drill into the wood, you know, and it gives it a backing. That way, you're not getting it bent down because it requires a little bit of pressure. You know, I'm not the most patient driller, and if you want to, you can spray a little, you know, cutting oil on it as you go. Clean that up later; it'll all wash off. Awesome, yes, sir. Yeah, I remember we were talking in there last week about that. Yeah, you definitely want you to set you up a worm. I guess 10, 12 feet of 5/8, half or 5/8 is fine in a 5 gallon. Yeah, no, they're easy to make. I'm just a purist, man. I want that stainless that I can clean, or that metal that I can keep clean and spray and be done with the woods. A little more upkeep. I'm sure there's some vegetable oils and stuff like that that you know that you can wipe it down to help keep it, you know, um, seasoned and help close the pores off maybe with some of those edible oils. Yeah, 3/8 is fine. Now, did you get a whole 20 in that 5 gallon bucket? I like getting, you know, like a 20 roll that'll help you give you some plumbing to get from your pot to your thumper. Yeah, 10 to 12 in a 5 gallon bucket is generally plenty. But if you get a roll like 20, that gives you plenty to plumb your pot, you know, to your thumper, and from your thumper to your worm. So it gives you that little extra that you need to, if you need, you know, some extra to get it done. But yeah, it's definitely the best way to go. Is worms are the best condensers out there. Period, hands down. Maybe not the most practical, to use in all circumstances. I know the shotguns are pretty handy because again, you don't have to worry about an open flake stand where the water drains out. Kind of like the canister I was talking about earlier with a shotgun. It's enclosed, so you can force water through it. And unless you got a leak, you don't have big issues with a lot of water and drips. And anytime you use a flake stand, you can only feed as much water in as you can drain. So if you have a larger pipe coming out of your buckets, your condensers, that's generally a big plus. I mean, if you've got a ½ inch feeding it and it's feeding it with some pressure, you're going to need more than a ½ inch to drain it, right? Or you're going to have to cut back, right? So if you've got like an 1.5 inch, PVC or something coming out of that bucket, that'll just return it to the cooler or whatever you're circulating from. That's ideal. That way you can, there we go, shot time. But that way you can kind of increase your flow to maintain that 60 to 75 degree sweet spot that you kind of want to keep things in, generally, unless you're experimenting. Cheers. Good stuff. But yeah, that setting those up and basically when you get that beaver pot, once you get your worm like that, the little pot that comes with it, you won't have a lot of use for those. What's going on, James? Yeah, it'll harden up. That's why if you got some just some water or some cutting oil or something, spray on it as you cutting it, as you're drilling it, that'll help. How things up in Canada, in the Great White North, brother? Beautiful place. But yeah, the back to the 3-pot beavers. I like to get on that because really that seems to be one of the more popular steels because of the price. It's inexpensive and it's good for the money, but there are some little things that you're going to have to do. And going, watching Phil Billy's videos and checking those out a lot will definitely help. In fact, on some of these, hey Joseph, how's it going, brother? Hope you're doing all right tonight. But I'm going to have to start linking to some of those and posting some links in here because he's got a lot of videos on those. That's kind of what he specialized in early on. Helping a lot of beaver people out. So he's got tons of stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you get a good step bit, that'll cut it up pretty quick, for sure. But yeah, he's got a lot of videos on what you need to do to really to make those 3 pots better. I'd love to have the time to spend to do some videos like that. Maybe one of these days. I plan on doing some instructional videos, and if I do, hell, I might just try to pick one up used or something cheap so I can show everybody because I like showing charts and I'm a hands-on kind of person and I'd love to be able to just show y'all what I'm talking about, and breaking the pot out saying, here's what you need to do. You need to take this damn piece of shit gasket off and go to Phil Billy or Amazon, get this one, or go to Ace Hardware, get this one, or Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever, and get this gasket set up. Get this bulkhead fitting, get this copper coil, and yeah, you gotta use cutting oil. Helps a lot. But use and be able to do more of a hands-on, and that's what Field Billy does. So I'd like to be able to maybe maybe I get Phil to help me index some of his videos that I can refer to because there's a lot of especially when it comes to the beaver 3 pots. I get a lot of questions on those over the last few months. A lot of questions, and that's generally people have a lot of the same questions, and when they come in here, you probably heard me answering a couple of times, and when I do help, jump in there and help answer. It's we're all learning together, and you know the drill. You've heard me talk about them, so helping people out, and it's what it's all about. And that's a very common thing. Those little 3-pot bevers are, it's the one of the most popular little stovetop steels out there, and they do a fine job. Uh, but they're really good once you make the mods that we were talking about. Once you make those modifications to it, man, you'll like it a lot more. Yeah, yeah. The 18.5 foot ball is the bomb, man. I love it. It's. I wish I'd have had it years ago. I started out on like an old pressure cooker, right? And it was small. And then I moved up to a little copper pot that was small. And then I went to a keg, and I used a keg for a long time. And then I got some bigger stuff um, that I fooled with for a little while. They were big, big. Um, but yeah, having the little 18.5 on the stove top. If you got a stove top, that'll do it. Uh, but again, in the house, have a fire extinguisher. 100%. Do not even think about doing it inside your house without having a fire extinguisher that's ready for alcohol, because it's not if, it's when. There's always going to be little accidents happen. You know, little things, gaskets. You think you got that tri-clamp gasket in there just right, and it's not in there right, and you didn't know it, but it's kicking out alcohol vapors and spewing it in the whole room, and and then it hit that gas stove, and I was just taking a piss, man. I was just, it was just a quick trip to the bathroom. I came back, my whole kitchen's ablaze. You don't want to be that guy. And I've had some friends that's had that. Old Phil, Captain Phil, had that happen to him on his bever. He thought he had those little clamps that come down. Those little locks. They have like a little piece of wire that go on each side for those clamps that come down. And I guess one side had come loose, and it was only hanging on one side. And he wasn't paying attention, and it wasn't clamped shut good. And he left. He walked away from the steel, went out. When he came back in, everything was ablaze. So, but fortunately, he had him a fire extinguisher, and he got that shit put out. So you definitely want to have the fire extinguisher. Man, that's funny shit. I'll never. That's crazy. All right, let's see. What size thumper would you put on a 250-liter beer kegs? They're running to the same thumper. I don't do a lot of dual feed. It's really tough to get both to heat up at the same time, and to have 4 shots go through at the same time, and to have if you're using a common uh, it's just tough. It's really tough to get your cuts down just right, because usually one will be ahead of the other. I've tried experiment with that in the past, James, and it's tough. I would recommend using just have 2 separate ones. It's beer kegs are cheap, and having little pony kegs for thumpers are cheap, and you're just one condenser shy of doing 2 separates anyway. So I would definitely separate it, brother, and make your life easier. I experimented with that, and that was the conclusion that I came to. Is I really wanted it to happen because had 2 80-gallon ones, and I was wanting to run them at the same time, and I came to the conclusion really quickly that yeah, I had to set up 2 separate systems. Yeah. The thing about that, Michael, is yeah, I do, and there's some invertase and basically um, your uh, your enzyme pectic enzymes will break down cellulose. That's basically what your pectic enzymes do. But that makes anytime you're breaking down cellulose like that, you're creating four shots. That's wood alcohol, right? Because that's how they make wood alcohol, is breaking down the cellulose from the wood, and you can actually make it from paper. So yeah, you're getting a lot of methanol when you do that. That's why when you use pectic enzymes, you're going to have more fours and heads because of that. Um, but there's what's xylanase that also does it. Um, but I tend to, yeah, I don't fool with it. I've used the pectic enzymes and that helps break down the cellulose in the cell walls and on a very small level. Um, but nah. Actually, I was thinking about that earlier today. I wonder what a pectic enzyme would do with corn and the husks and everything and on the kernels and stuff. But I would say that if you're getting a good conversion, with just the alpha, the beta, and the glucose, if I were going to do anything, I would uh, I would use alpha, amylase. I would use malted grains that have all that to help convert. And then I'd finish with the glucose if you really want to, to get that high amount of fermentable sugars, as you can out of it. I would go that route as opposed to using the invertase or xylanase or, even the pectic enzyme on a grain. What's going on, Roy? Yeah, I think there's only so much you're going to get. Um, And I think once you start breaking down a lot of cellulose and breaking down a lot of that plant matter like that, you do increase a lot of fours and heads. And I'm not sure that you're going to get that much return for the trouble that it's going to be worth. If you're a little low, I'd just throw in some dextrose to increase it before I would use an expensive enzymes, to help break down some of the plant matter. But great question, man. And I'm sure there's people out there that may be having luck. If you know of people that are using it and having some success with it, share it. I mean, I don't think it would be worth the trouble, really. I would definitely throw some dextrose in there and make my life easier. Or like I say, use that high temp alpha, use the malts, and then throw in some, liquid glucose, to help break everything up. I think that would maximize things as well without having to deal with a lot of more expensive enzymes or breaking down plant matter and increasing fours and heads. Yes, me too, Miss Lisa. Rough day for you too, huh? Okay, James. So specifically, okay. Um, should I just blend the two separate spirit? Yeah. So if you got the same mash, I run them both out, and you can run them at the same time. Um, yeah, Distillers malt has good diastatic power. Yeah, yeah. I use some of the what do they call it, LME light malt extract. Yeah, yeah. I've got some bags of it. I've used it. Yeah, alpha, beta, and there's a glucose. So if you're using like liquid alpha and liquid glucose, but beta is an endogenic enzyme where it's basically generally when you use a beta amylase, you're getting that from the malt or from the actual plant natural enzyme from a malted grain, uh, whereas like a liquid glucose is an exogenous enzyme that you just add to, you know. But both work wonderfully, and not to be confused with each other, because beta glucanase is what a beta amylase is, and everybody sees that glucanase and they think, well, that's glucose, and it's not. It's a little bit different. Very similar, but different temperatures that they work, but they both do the same things. I think glucose may be a little better at what it does, though. Back to James. Yeah, so like if you've just got, you got two stills running, you got them both dripping. I mean, yeah, you can blend it. I mean, if it's all just corn alcohol, if it's the same and, it's the same mash, you're just running it through two. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can get you a big old pot and dump them in there and proof it down in that, mix it all up, be just fine. Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you're talking about making brandy in one and maybe a corn liquor in another to make a mountain brandy or something like that, I mean, I guess you could do that as well. I mean, there's a lot of blending going on in the commercial business. A lot of people realize it, but there's a lot of blends. A lot of people take a lot of different characters from a lot of different distillations and blend it into a final bottle. That's an art in and of itself. And I think I burnt my taste buds out. I don't think I'd be very good at that anymore. I probably drank too much high proof and had COVID too many times. So my little taste buds aren't really attuned to some of the nuances of some of the distillates. There's some sommeliers and whiskey stewards can tell. I'm just not that. My palate isn't that good. It used to be a lot better than it is now, but I think I've a high proof and burnt my taste buds up. And I'm paying for it. Yeah, a lot of people don't talk about the liquid malt extracts and stuff. There's let me see, I've got a bag in here. Liquid malt extract, LME. Do a little Google on that and check it out. I've got a bag of it in here. Hold on a minute. It's not in there. It must be upstairs, but it's a big foil bag. You can get it at J.D. Carlson and a lot of other brew places had it. I think that's where I got it on Amazon. But it's good to use and it's good for converting and experimenting with. It has some good flavors. Lisa, you trying to get me drunk? Let me try it. Let's start sipping this stuff now. I'm getting a little bit lit. Cheers. Good stuff, though. Oh, just a second. Let me see here. See, now I'm drunk. I can think of Mr. Fusion all day. I couldn't think of it a minute ago. Wayne makes some really good stuff. Hell yeah, always. I need more of that tequila. If you got more of that though, I've been hitting that pretty hard. Yeah, I've got plenty of this, Jeff. I appreciate you, brother. But yeah, that tequila, I'm digging that stuff, man. That's really good. I was just talking about it before you logged on earlier. High quality stuff. For those that don't know, my buddy Jeff, Lip Service Crew, is a master distiller. Makes, well, not by the show or that, but did you just make some more? Got aged. That's the gold is really the best. I love it. But yeah, man, he makes some really excellent distillations, man. Excellent distiller. Definitely knows his shit, man. Makes good stuff. Really good stuff. Store quality, shelf quality stuff for sure. And he's a pretty good fella. He he likes delving in some of the finer bourbons in life. He and I go to some of these distilleries here locally. I've got a bunch of distilleries local here that put out some pretty special bottles from time to time, and if you can get in on them, there's some pretty good deals to be made. I mean, I guess there's people that make a living, just going to all these distilleries and buying some of these unique special offerings, and they're very limited. So, if you can get one, you're pretty lucky. If you live close to it, if you can go in a few days in a row, because a lot of times they'll limit you on how many you can get. But I mean, I've seen some $200 and $300 bottles that when you buy it at the distillery for 200-300, sell them for $800,000-$900,000 on the secondary market. So there is a market for it, but I guess you can make a living. I guess I could bootleg legal liquor. Just resell the legal liquor, bootleg legal stuff. But I like getting unique stuff. I picked up from Buffalo Trace, got it was their highest proof that they've ever made. And it was a pretty interesting bottle. And it was $100, and I think it was selling for $3. Probably maybe a little bit more now since you can't get it anymore. But stuff like that is pretty. There's a lot of groups that sell chances, raffle off tickets to, get a bottle, or they'll they'll take a bottle and sell 10 raffles, and each will get 1/10 of that, in a pouch sent to them so they can, try it and sample it for, a small fee. So it's pretty interesting. But, it's hard for me. I don't have a lot of time for stuff. I got a lot of oars and a lot of waters. I got a lot of things going on, and it keeps me busy. It's got so many things going on at the same time. So I try to manage my time as best I can. But I do enjoy some good fine bourbons, and some of these I'll probably just buy and collect, and there might be a few that I'll buy and try to resell, to make a little bit of money on if I can. But for the most part, do you think if you have a lot, John, if you have a lot of liquor and you need to just strip it down, and you just want to, to run it and run it quickly, yeah, and especially if it's like a neutral, and if you're just stripping off alcohol that you're gonna, proof up to a neutral later, Absolutely. If it's like a brandy or a whiskey, I would probably wouldn't. I'd probably just, one off, one run those. Well, I can't say that. Some of my brandies I've done, double and triple runs, but I do it differently. Um, I do it like a cognac, um, and I run it at the same time. So a lot of times when people do a triple run, they'll run their liquor off, they'll make their cuts, and then they'll take it, they'll proof it down with water, and then put it back into a still, run it again, up the still, proof it down, and put it in the still and run it again. But each time, I think when you proof it down with water and rerun it, you lose a lot of flavor. What I do is I'll run it, and you're welcome, brother. I run it, and then I'll take off my forks and heads, and I'll run it all the way to the bottom of the tails, and then I'll dump that right back into the back set, right? Because that you wouldn't be amazed how much flavor is in that back set. So instead of using water to proof it down and run it again, why not put it back in the back set where all that flavor is, right? Okay, makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And it makes a lot more flavor. So when you do subsequent runs like that, um, I dump it back, and that's similar to the way they do cognac. And I'll do sometimes 2 or 3 runs that way. Yeah, cloudy tails. That's just fuse oils. It's no biggie. Save those tails. There's a lot of good alcohol in the tails. That's probably the biggest mistake I see, and it's not necessarily a mistake. If you've got a 10-gallon still and you just don't have time for that extra jar of fucking tails, I understand. Really, it's so much to do about nothing. But once you get into 50-gallon, 20, 30, 40, 50-gallon stills, you're talking, gallons of alcohol then, and it does amount to something. And it is something that you want to collect all the way down, especially if you're doing using your back set for sour mashing. You have to run your tails out, right? Or else you're going to put a lot of high proof um, back set and kill everything in your damn sour mash and defeat the purpose. So, um, yeah, it just depends on what you're doing. But if it's a small man, I can understand. If you got a 5 or 10 gallon still and you don't want to full the tails, I'm 100% with you. But once you get to 20 or 30 gallons and you got a lot of alcohol, stopping at 80. I mean, that's the proof of a lot of bottles that you get off the shelf, 80 proof, right? That's what you're throwing away. There's a lot of good alcohol in that can be easily recovered. So save those tails. Maybe, some people swear with the fours and the heads. I do understand that there's some good esters in the heads, and there's some sweetness in there, and there's also some acetone in there that I just don't want to deal with. And you know, I don't know if there's a right and wrong. It's just I prefer not to fool with them as much. But there is, if it once well I will say, once you get into stills when you're dealing with hundreds of gallons, it's a little bit easier if you're tasting those um, esters and heads as they come off. You can isolate some of those sweet good flavors pretty easy. I guess you could say easy. I hate using that word. But it's much easier when you have much larger volumes, because you're going to have a quart maybe, or a good pint of that good sweet esters coming off, that's easily differentiated from the rest of the heads. Whereas if you're on like a 10-gallon still, you're talking about a half a shot glass. You're not going to notice it, and it's really hard to make that fine a cut, right? So you're really not going to notice a lot of that fine type stuff unless you're on a bigger setup, and that's generally higher level type stuff. So generally, I throw away all the heads and fours, except for the low fours, or the low heads getting into the high hearts. We were talking about that on the chart the other day. Let me throw this chart up there, and this is kind of a pretty good little chart. So once you get to like right here And these two, yeah, you might be able to save those two and deal with that little bit of heads. And you know, that's got quite a bit of ethanol in there, right? That you can recover. But with these, fuck no. I'm not fooling with these. I don't care if there's sweetness in those. I don't have anything big enough to deal with that. No. So when I talk about low heads and high hearts, that's where I'm at. Low heads, high hearts, and right in this range. And yeah, you can throw those into your tails and run those again. Do a feints run with them. Uh, but yeah, this green's so much easier. Uh, yeah, you got some good and bad flavors. And ethyl acetate, aldehyde, acetaldehyde, acetones. Um, but there are some good esters in there, but it's really hard to separate. But yeah, out of your tails, you can separate that green pretty easy from the blue. But once you get down to 20, you're not gonna. It's not worth the gas and the time and the trouble to try to go any further. And also, um, let me throw up this chart and see. Once you get up to here, this line starts going straight up, right? Because once you get to like 4%, 8 proof, it really you get water, straight water and 8 proof all the way through, or 4% alcohol all the way through until all the water's gone. So once you get that far, you're really just boiling water with a little ethanol, and you're getting it both off at the same exact ratio, because this line never crosses here until all the water's evaporated and you're dry. Okay. And that's why this line doesn't cross here either, because it's hard to get beyond 200 proof. Can't get beyond 200 proof. But it's hard to get to 200. Yeah, just run them again, brother. Pints or quarts. When I'm not following you, brother. I didn't notice when you said that. Yeah, and that's another good thing to be conscious of is where you are in your steel. You know, how much volume you've got in your steel, and make sure that you don't get below your elements. Very good point, too. Oh, from the last chart. This can be anything. You can collect these. It depends on how big your steel is. These could be gallons if you had a big enough steel, or they could be half pints if you have a small steel, right? But generally, you're going to get about 30% heads, 40% hearts, and another 30% tails, generally speaking. I hate doing that because it's never exactly that, but this gives you the gist of how it works. Now, this is incorrect. This chart's not right. This red should have a little bit of red here, a little bit of red here, red here, red here, red here. And it should start showing little dots of red. And it should show dots of red all the way to the end, because you'll get 4 shots all the way to your tails. But you're not going to get this much, right? So it's going to decrease all the way across. And the same with this blue. You're going to get blue dots here too. You should have some little blue, like minus signs in here floating around, and little dots of red floating around in here, because you're going to get them all the way through. This was kind of, I guess, done when they thought that everything cooked off early. And fractional distillation, this is what it looks like if you fractionally distill. But pot stills don't fractionally distill because of azeotropes. So, but I love my little charts. I like using charts. It helps me explain things a lot better, and I love using illustrations. Shots, dry throat, yeah, man. That high proof get you, bro. Cheers, my friend. Mark, didn't you tell me that you got a steel stolen recently? I hate to hear it, brother. I'd go down to the recyclers and see if somebody brought it in. Chances are they take it to the recyclers, and those recyclers will buy anything. And if you can get it off of them, probably a lot of them are like buying it and they're not going to resell it for copper. They're going to keep that sucker and take it home, but you might get lucky. But that's what they do. But yeah, texture that could be gallons. It's just according to how big your steel is. So, generally you're not going to get that many quarts right off off what I run. That's one. The 20. That's 5 gallons of alcohol. 5 gallons coming off. Yeah, maybe with a 20-gallon or 30-gallon, you're going to have to deal with something like this for sure. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff brought up a good point. When you're running your tails out, make sure that your element is always staying below the liquid level, and that's important too. And when you're looking for a steel and you're wanting to get something with an element, make sure you get an element pretty close to the bottom. You don't want that son bitch right in the middle. Fuck that. Get it to where it's in the bottom 10-15%. Don't want it right on the bottom where if there's sediments, which you shouldn't have. But yeah, you want it kind of low. That way you can run it out and run smaller amounts in there. But any of these charts and everything, excuse me, are in the file section on the militia page. So just jump in there. I'm gonna have to turn this little fan on. I've been sick as hell and I'm getting little hot flashes. I don't think it's the alcohol in it, but it might be. But man, I've been sick for the last week. I felt better last night and I got drunk and I don't feel sick yet today. I hadn't felt good all last week. I don't know. Must have a little stomach bug, I think. But that happens when you get old. You have to get out and mow grass with a push mower. And I got me a new mower, man. It was given to me by my dad and stepmom. It was my sister's. They used it at my sister's house, and she passed away. So that's about the time my mower. I had a nice little personal pace Toro mower, man. It pushed down and it'd speed up. It's real lightweight. And I loved that thing, man. And I don't know, it was just old. It was like 15, 17 years old. And it just finally broke down. I think pissed and I think some rings in it. I might have to try to fix it. But I got this one off my stepmom and dad, and it's nice, self-propelled mower, but the handle's real thin, and it's like you don't like have something big to put your hands on. It's real small, so it might kind of wears on your hands a little bit. And to do the self-propelled, you have to pull this little crank, and hold it down all the time, and the deck is heavy as fuck. It's like a steel deck, and it's heavy as shit. And well, we do shots. Just get me drunk. She just wants to hear me say stupid shit, and she wants to hear me slur. That's all I've got to conclude. But the deck's real heavy, and I mean it's a free mower, so I guess that's the best mower ever. But man, it's making me miss my other one a lot, and I might have to fix that other one. And hell, if I have to sell this one to do it, I will. But it's heavy as fuck. But it's a decent mower. I mean, it mows well, and it's got a little better motor on it than the old one of mine did, but just fucking heavy. I'm sure somebody will like it. I like my old one. I think it's a personal pace is what it's called. I don't think that is Toro. That might be somebody else. Let me Google that real quick. Personal pace. Toro, yeah, that's Toro. Okay. Yeah, those the bomb. You ever get a Toro personal pace? They're awesome. I got mine off a buddy of mine. Actually, he was getting ready to move. He moved to Louisville, and then he's getting ready to move to Arizona. He's a healthcare executive, and he had this Toro. And I guess when the people movers moved it, they set it up vertically. And when he tried to start it, he couldn't even pull the string on it. It was just locked up tight. He said he didn't know what they did to it. I had no idea either. And I said, well, I'll try to fix it. And he said, here. And he gave it to me. And I said, I got to give you something for it. He's like, no, man, I don't even know if you can get it working or not. It's locked up. And I'm like, I'll trade something. So I traded him a putter, for it. A pretty nice little putter I bought at a silent auction. I got it cheap. It was a nice putter. So I gave him that for it. I didn't just give it to me. So I started taking that thing down, and when I pulled the spark plug out of it, oil came out of the damn, spark plug hole. And I'm like, what? So I tilted that thing up, and I guess when they transported it, they had it in such an angle that somehow the piston got filled with oil right above the piston. So once I drained all the oil out, cleaned it out a little bit, this thing fired right up, man, and lasted me 17 years. I love that mower. So I'm gonna get that thing fixed. Those some bitches are pretty expensive. I'm just saying, $500 for the mower I have, man. That's fucking crazy, man. Wow. Tractor Supply 450, Ace Hardware 530. Damn, there's a big one, 30-inch deck 1500. Crazy. 479 at Lowe's. Yeah. Shit. That's an expensive mower. But I tell you what, I love that son bitch. I will get me another one. I'm gonna sell this son bitch I got now. It's red. I don't know who makes it. It's just too heavy. What's going on, Hellbilly? Do you have to let the yeast clear all the way? Well, the yeast. It's the mash that's clearing, and no, you don't. Actually, it can get. I ain't saying it can get too clear, but if you get a little bit of milkiness to it, especially grains, okay, when we're talking grains, a little bit of milkiness to it has flavor, right? So if you let it get clear as clear on a grain mash, probably going to be dry, A, because you let it go so long, but B, kind of lose a little bit of flavor. I'm not saying you want to fucking yeast bed it, okay? You don't want to get a lot of that shit at the bottom in there, but it's going to be a little milky. It's not going to be clear like water. If you got a grain mash and you're siphoning it off and it's clear as water, I mean, yeah, I mean it'll work. It'll work fine, and you definitely won't have to worry about scorched anything. But yeah, yeah, mine does too, especially when I get a little heated. Um, but yeah, good question. With wines and brandies, I tend to let them get clearer. If you follow me, than I do like my grains. My grains go in, they're milky, but they don't have like solids in them, right? So, but I do call it clearing. But when they say clear, they're basically saying let all your sediments get down in there. So, if you take like a glass full of water and pour just a touch of milk in it, and it gets a little cloudy and colored, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, it doesn't have to be clear like water. You just don't want a lot of particles in there. Now, if you do get some particles in there, the last thing you want to do is siphon mash into a still and then go do something and let it sit there half a day or a day and then come back. Okay, I'll run it now. Do not ever do that because you'll have a lot of sediments that'll sink, settle to the bottom. They'll scorch like fuck, and you just ruin it. So just don't do that. So if you do that, make sure you stir it up some before you run it, or rack it off and clean off the bottom and get rid of those sediments, because there's nothing worse than running a good mash with some sediments that scorch. especially if you got one of them fucking turkey fryer burners that just focus that high heat. I mean, those things are great for boiling water, man, but definitely don't. I don't like using them for running, and I don't like using them for heating, cooking mashes. But they're great for boiling water, and they're great for frying turkeys and heating up oils. So I mean, if you have a jacketed steel, they're the bomb. But yeah, for cooking, not so much. And you can hear them a mile away, man. It's just crazy. Yeah, you can tell I'm getting a little bit of a buzz on Saturday night, right? Isn't that what that was last minute? I see that in there. Wait a minute, what is that? You know what? It looks like freaking. Is that like a vampire with a? Or is that hands coming up? I can't tell what the hell you got in there, Mark. It looks like a little freaking vampire or something up in this. I tell you, man, it's a lot of fun, brother. Yeah, join the militia and get in there and talk. Come to the festivals. It's a brotherhood, man. We have a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun talking about. It's a brotherhood, man, and sisterhood. Lisa's in here with us. We got a lot of gals involved as well. Damn, y'all. Y'all like to see me get drunk once. This is what Santa get fucked up day. Just knows I'm drinking 135 proof. I put a dent in this ball jar today. Yeah, my drinks are getting bigger, and I didn't even hardly feel that. So I know I'm getting fucked up. That 135 proof, it's good flavor for 135. That's hard to do. Good stuff. Yeah, we have a lot of fun, John. A lot of fun hanging out, chatting, get in the shit show, jump in on there on Friday night, man. Shit gets crazy. We talk about everything. You know, we don't talk about as much moonshining. We'll talk about every fucking thing. Last night, though, we're starting to get a lot more people coming in there asking questions. I think a lot of them think it's Q&A night still, you know, and they jump in there to ask questions, and it's like, motherfuckers, jump on. Where the hell are you on Wednesday and Saturday? You know, don't come in on Friday night. We just want to get drunk and talk shit and ask questions. Save that for Saturday and Wednesday. You know, this is not for us to talk shit, talk about politics and life, the universe, and everything, man. And they're not in here. Same fuckers. They're not in here. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. We do have pretty good brotherhood, and you know, it's there's always going to be issues too. You get a bunch of rednecks. They like to drink, and there's always going to be a little drama. I try to steer clear of that. You know, the shit show is trying to bring UFC to some of these shine fests. Yeah, we've got some boxing matches and shit going on. Yeah, it gets a little heated sometimes. And I think we got Sean Rigsby and Matt Brown throw down, farm to bottle. I was hoping to see mixed martial arts because it's been a long time since I've seen a mixed martial arts fight. You know, I used to go watch boxing matches all the time. My football coach was a Gold Glove, and he taught us a bunch of us to box. And we boxed a little bit, and I never boxed, competitively on the Gold Glove level, but just local stuff. And in the gym, we had boxed a lot in the gym. But our football coach was a Gold Glove, and he taught us all a lot about boxing. Hillard Howard, he's mean, son of a bitch. I guess he's still alive. He's too damn mean to die. He was a tough coach, man. He was a toughie. Old school, hardcore, man. Gold Glove, badass. Looked like Fred fucking Flintstone, man. Jawline. He had a hard jaw, man. But yeah, we boxed with him, and he'd say, "All right, it's about time for you to go down, kidney punch, and you're on your knees, and it's all over." We got him football practice one day. We all jumped his ass, broke his fucking leg. We fucked him up, man. You had enough. Yeah, I guess after that wasn't quite so much. He wasn't quite as mean to us anymore. But yeah, he was a hard ass, great guy. Yeah, man, they's getting all hated and shit. I love that keyboard warrior kind of stuff. I'm gonna hit you with my keyboard, motherfucker. Talk that shit. I'm gonna get my mouse and swing it and beat you with it. Fuck that shit. I don't like a lot of that. I think it's silly. It's just a bunch of little hard pissers trying to act like something. What's going on, Dark? Dark was in there. He jumped in with us later on last night for the shit show. But yeah, it's I don't know, getting on the line and talking all bad stuff. I don't know, man. For me, it's kind of lame. I mean, they're trying to promote a fight, so I understand, and it's cool for that. But if people are serious about that and talking that shit online, come on, man. Proof's in the pudding. Take that shit to the fucking, take it to the ring. And that's what they're gonna do on Fire the Bottle. They're gonna take it to the ring. I don't know. Both guys ain't slouches. I think Rigsby probably maybe better mixed martial artist, but maybe Matt's a little meaner and better in boxing. So it should be interesting. Yeah, we caught the shit show, man. You never know what the fuck's gonna happen on there. It gets crazy. It gets drama. We bring people in there that are known to promote a bunch of drama and issues. We've had people that we've called out that have stolen, basically. I don't know how else you can put it, that have taken from people. Some of them are steel builders and they take money and don't deliver on steels. And we've got people that do raffles and stuff that collect money for people that have been hospitalized and sick and flood victims and stuff and keep the money and stuff. So um, we run them through the ringers when they do that kind of shit. And we make sure that their reputations are shit. And you just don't want to come to this community and do that kind of stuff. And we've got a few that have done it, and they realize the error in their ways, and some of them tried to make up for it. But the only reason they tried to make up for it was because of the lost status that they had, and not necessarily for their name and pride. So they're still pieces of shit in my book. I try not to get too much of that. Get me drunk and get me started. All right. What do you need to get on the shit show? You need to get on Friday night, same time, same back channel, same place you're watching me right now. You can watch the shit show. And to get on, there's a link that we post. And if you don't see the link, you can ask in chat, can somebody send me the link, or can somebody post the link here in chat? And we'll post the link. Now, I will say that we can only do 10 at a time. That's our max limit here on StreamYard. So like Dark, you got in there last night. We already had 10, so you had to sit backstage for a little while, but eventually people drop out, and we'll bring in as we can. And it's a lot of fun. It gets crazy. Uh, yeah, it's, I appreciate it, Solo. I see a lot of people learning and they never ask the first questions, and that's a good sign, because that goes right to show that a lot of people have the same questions. So you know go back and look at a lot of the past episodes that I put out, and a lot of your questions will probably be answered in some of those. So if you're not getting it in what I talk, and I know a lot of times people like to lurk, they call it lurking, and you just kind of sit back in the background and watch and learn. And they don't want to post a question because they don't want their name up there, because they're afraid I'm going to be put on some kind of list, or they may be watching, and they probably are watching. Truth be told, they definitely are watching for sure. So if you want to, just look at the past episodes and stuff, and I'm going to do some videos that are targeted to specific questions that get repeated over and over again, like 3-pot steels, lacto, There's certain in cuts, making cuts and stripping runs and explaining that. So I want to do some videos on that and name them. That way you can just go to the 10 podcast 101 and or Distilling 101 podcast page and pull up this, go through the video files and pull up a specific file that says lactobacillus infections or lacto infections, and I'll have a little video talking all about that with some charts and some other things to help explain things and answer some questions there. Or I just got a 3-pot still, what do I need to do next? And maybe you do a video, and maybe I'll get Phil Billy sometime and do a video, both of us, and I know he's done a lot on that. So be fun though to get my brother. I love Phil Billy, man. He's a great guy, great guy. So, and he helps support this page. He provides StreamYard for all of us that post from the militia, which ain't free and it ain't cheap, and does a lot himself. So, any way that you can help him helps keep us going. So if you have needs and parts and stuff that you want to buy, consider Phil. He's a great guy, and him and Ed work their ass off, and they will get you your shit. You're not going to get fucked over, and you're not going to wait 8 months to get it either. Yeah, we certainly will, brother. Yeah, we're all about love and brotherhood, but yeah, you don't want to fuck us, and you don't want to fuck the members, and you don't want to just the moonshine community generally. It's not a good community to fuck people over. If you're gonna fuck somebody over, maybe in the floral industry, maybe you should go fuck some florists over or something, right? Yeah, it's not like a good idea to fuck the moonshine militia and members or people in moonshine, period. We have a tendency to take people to the train station if you fuck around too much. Y'all watch y'all watch Yellowstone with my and watching that. They talk about taking people to the train station. That's some serious shit right there, man. You better believe it. That's what they call mountain justice. Oh yeah, we got the popo watchers for sure, brother. I mean, they're watching. I mean, home distilling's legal in many states, kind of like marijuana, and they're looking for guys that are selling. If you come in here and talk about, yeah, I've got a 300-gallon submarine pot, and I'm selling 200 gallons a week. Yeah, you might be an idiot. Don't do it. But if you come in here, I've got my 13-gallon beaver, I'm getting some leaks. We're here about making the hobby fun and safe, and they don't give a fuck. Really, they don't. If you're not out selling it and you're not flaunting it, the chances are that you're not going to get caught up in it. If you're doing TikTok videos and you're putting it out there and you're pretty high profile and you're really wealthy or something like that, and they got some deep pockets to go after, sometimes they might do that, just to make a statement. I had that happen actually to somebody recently who's a good friend. So it does happen, but keep things private. We can sit and talk about it. It's legal in a lot of states. So, when I come on here and I talk about it, I'm preaching to people who exercise. I leave it up to you to determine whether or not it's legal in your state. I don't want to have any kind of liability, and my whole thing is I want to make it a safe hobby for you, and I want it to be an enjoyable hobby, and I want it to be rewarding. And I want you to make good liquor and be happy with it. And all your buddies, it's like, God damn, man, you make as good as stuff as, we can get off the shelf, and we can get you to that point. If you follow, I want to put some steps together uh, on grains that if you follow these steps and you put it in a barrel or put it on some wood, I can guarantee you that you're going to make some stuff that is as good or better than what you can buy in the stores, right? Now, I'm not talking about the top shelf Pappy, you know. but you're going to be as good or better than any early times or some Kesler and some of that bottom shelf shit, right? So yeah, I mean, it's I love the science of it too, brother, and that's really what gets me of it. It is the science and preaching that and the safety. Now there's and and it just all right. What's this? Penelope cigar blend. Are we talking about a liquor here or something? You have to elaborate on that, man. Are we talking about a whiskey that tastes like a cigar? That's interesting. But yeah, I enjoy the science of it too. I've had college, chemistry and organic chemistry and college level biologies and several different uh, regular chemistry and organic chemistry and stuff. So I was going to go pre med at one time till calculus kind of put me in my place. But I do love the science of it. Every I've made moonshine since I was a kid. Man, I had high school, chemistry and physics and biology. So anytime it was talked about, I was always listening. Oh yeah, okay. Um, I don't smoke anymore, man. Cigarettes or cigars or tobacco. But I save my lungs for the good stuff. But yeah, I enjoyed the science of it, and anytime I took science, I kind of angled it towards, how does that apply to making shine? Because I made shine since I was a kid. I was pretty young when I made it. I grew up in Eastern Kentucky. It was common. It was, it was just something people did. It was another occupation. Plumbers, electricians, moonshiners, dentists, bankers, whatever. It's just another occupation. And I made a lot, drank a lot moonshine growing up. But I do enjoy the science of it, and you can take it. A lot of moonshiners reject the science, but at the same time, they don't realize what they're doing is science. And if you can explain to them, and I like explaining things in a way people can understand it. That's why I like charts and stuff a lot, because there's nothing easier than getting on here and browbeating and using a bunch of big scientific terms and trying to impress people with your scientific knowledge and all that, using words that confuse people. And to be honest, I've had pretty high level college chemistry, and there's some stuff that's out there, that I could probably post some charts of that, it just it's like, what, you start scratching your head at it, and it's like, what in the hell am I looking at here? Right? I mean, it gets pretty complicated, and you really have to be, I guess, smarter than me to know what some of this stuff is even talking about. Some of these words I have to look up, and I graduated college with honors, and I took a lot of sciences and stuff. But you start looking at modeling of polysaccharide structurals, right? And oligosaccarides. You'll hear me talk about a lot of this stuff, but I'll put it in simple terms so you can understand what this is describing, depolymerization, breaking down. I describe this a much, much easier way to understand than what they show here, okay? But this is the kind of shit that I get into. I was out running around the other day, stopped at Tiger Shines. All right. Donnie having the Moonshine Museum. Oh, I didn't know Donnie did. Hell yeah, brother. Uh, post that in the militia. I don't believe I remember seeing anything about that on the militia page, Jeffrey. Post that. I need to get down there and see. I need to get down there and see. I'm tired. Yeah, I need to get down there and see him, man. Yeah, I'm on his page now. I'm gonna see if I can pull a link. Now, I don't see him post anything about it. If you got any info on that, if you could uh, post that. I just went to Tiger Shine's page and I didn't see it, but post it, post it. Because I know that they had the Babyville show or festival every year, and they haven't had it this year. It's rescheduled, I guess. They went through a big flood down there, so Donnie and Teresa will have it later this year. I hope. Uh, Maybe I did hear something about that. I believe I did hear something about that having a little museum and stuff. But yeah, if you got any information on that, post it. Yeah, Donnie and Teresa are great people and love Beattyville. And they had a major flood there this year, which a lot of Eastern Kentucky did, and took out a lot of their power grid and a lot of property and stuff down there. So they had to postpone the festival. Hopefully they can have it in the fall. That's definitely one I go to every year because it's pretty close to me. And Donnie's great people. Donnie and Teresa both great people. For sure. Yeah, I don't smoke it tobacco anymore. No, I'll do that. All right. Well, hey, if you're a veteran winemaker, man, you're going to be a great brandy maker, uh, and grappa. And so you understand, the airlocks. You understand sanitary. You understand, potassium metabisulfates. You understand using potassium sorbates. And you understand the fermentation process. So I love beer makers and wine makers because it's so easy uh, to convert them into grains and brandies because that's that's what they do. All they got to do is distill their beer and distill their wine, right? So you found the right place, man. I love making wines. I made moonshine for probably, going on 48 years now. So winemaking it was in the last decade, and really gotten into winemaking and making some good brandies and some grappas and stuff. So definitely love brandy. You'll love it. And one good thing about it, if you've got a wine that just doesn't cut the mustard, it's just not that great. It's just meh. Still that shit. You can make a good brandy out of it. And there's certain ways that we can infuse flavors during the distillation process that can add some interesting flavors back into that wine and brandy to give it more body and to bring out maybe some of the negative things about it. And if it's really fucking bad, we can run it over some plates and stuff and make a neutral out of it, right? And pretty much have a you're not gonna lose any alcohol. You're not gonna just dump that shit down the drain anymore. If you have a wine with even with a little vinegar taste in it, you can try to salvage that. But it's interesting hearing a lot of distillers talk about they've never had anything. Solo, have you ever had any wine turn to vinegar on you? And have you ever had to deal with acetobacters and that issue? Hell yeah, man. He's right there. Oh man, yeah, they love it, man. They get some of that corn liquor in them. I've got some buddies up north that now it's funny, but most people in the United States and in the world, to them, moonshine is 180 proof corn liquor. It's something that's so hot you can't drink it, made with corn. And well, then you're pretty close to me, Jeff. He's pretty close to me as well. So, but you know, it's crazy. But they think that moonshine is 180 proof corn liquor, you know, and it's like, man, moonshine is anything that ain't taxed. It ain't just corn liquor. It's brandy. It's grappa. It's grain. It's rum. It's tequila. It's anything that you make at home that you don't pay tax on. That's what moonshine is. It's and I got some buddies that like, oh, that moonshine, that's too high proof. And then I give them some of mine. They're like, well, damn, man, where can I get more of this? Can I buy something like this off the shelf? What the hell? You know, and it changes their perception of it because everybody's always thought that moonshine's that old rot gut, high proof, headsy shit. And I guess in the past it kind of a little bit was that. But now we're teaching people how to make better cuts and how to distill a little cleaner and how to use copper mesh to take out sulfites, take out some of those bad flavors, how to treat your yeast better to make them happy and get a better, you know, sweeter and better flavors, notes that they normally don't give off if you stress them. You know, it's all about that. So Solo, you're definitely quite a few steps ahead of the game if you're familiar with fermentation. I mean, really, at this point, all you need to do is get a decent still. What kind of volume are you looking at? I highly recommend uh, a football, beverage football. See, that's the fruit flies, but never vinegar. Well, that's the biggest spreader of the acetobacters is your fruit flies. I've had a couple. I've had a couple turn to vinegar on me. It's not easy. Um, it doesn't happen overnight, and it generally happens to something that if your airlocks dry up on you, if you let your airlocks dry up and those little flies make it in there, and those little acetobacters make it in there, and oxygen makes it in there, and it sits for months and months and months, you can make some pretty good vinegar. But it's good to cook with, so you just gotta, you know, go with it. So they freak out when they saw your still hunt, man. It trips them out, doesn't it? When you show them the setup, man, they're like, wow. But they love it, man. I mean, you get people. It's so addictive. It's such an addictive hobby, you know. And you don't have to be an alcoholic to love it. You know, it's just so much fun to go through the process. It's a science, you know, and to go through the process and make it and actually make something like that that you can drink and make it flavorful and age it and come out with something that's like middle to top shelf or better. And it's like, damn, you know, I've got a grop out there that seasoned people have drank and they're like, man, this is some of the best thing that I've ever drank in my life. You know, and to hear people say that, you know, it's kind of, and they're serious. They're not, these people, you know, these people will be the first to say, man, that's some fucking shitty ass fucking liquor. I mean, they're straight up honest with you, you know, and like, man, this is some of the best shit I've ever put my lips to, you know, and they're like, I want more, you know, and it took like 2 years to make it. So yeah, it's not forthcoming anytime soon, but you know, and to have, you know, and pride into making something like that people have never tasted anything like it, and it's just, you know, knocks their socks off. You know, hell, it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling being able to make something like that, and we can get you, and we can get you to that point. That's awesome, man. Has Donnie talked about the festival being this fall? Has he said anything to you, Jeffrey, about that? Talk to him. I need to get up with him anyway and talk to him. And I'm hoping they're going to have it this year. I hope it's just not canceled this year because I really enjoyed going down there. I was there last year and had a really good time. The science behind it got me into making. Absolutely, man. It's all about science and document shit, but don't document the distillation part, right? Um, Winemaking and beer making is legal in most all states. Period. Some you have to do a little more than others, but generally they don't give a fuck about wine and beer because they tax by proof and alcohol, and it ain't there. So make notes of what you do, but call everything beer. When you do grains, it's a beer, right? That's a beer, not a mash for a moonshine. It's a beer. So make notes of your beer and what you did to make your beer. And the same thing about the wine that you're making. That's a wine, it's not a brandy. Make notes about the wine that you're making and call it that in your notes. And they can't use that against you. But yeah, it's good to make notes, and you can vary things and and improve on it, you know. So it's definitely a step by step building process, and it's an awesome hobby, man. I mean, it's your friends will they'll be blown away, by some of the stuff that you can turn out. Hey, that's right, Jeffrey. You can't get this off any shelf, but it's gold, man. That's some good shit right there. Now, the Wheated Bloody Butcher sour mash is good. It's really good. Good, probably as good as mine, maybe. But yeah, that right there is gold is its color. And I don't like to drink that when I'm drunk, man. I save that for when I'm sober so I can taste it. I'm not gonna drink it that much. That's right. Sit on its side. But yeah, it's an awesome hobby, man. And once you bring your buddies into it, you're like, man, check the shit out I made. And especially once you age it, once you put it on some oak, whether it's with spirals or some barrel stays, or actually put it in a barrel, that adds a lot of flavor to your moonshine. So it's going to make it more like something that you're buying in a bottle off the shelf, like a whiskey. And that's what people kind of expect from a moonshine is they're used to drinking whiskey. They're used to drinking something that's been aged in a barrel or on some oak. And could y'all hear that fan in the background when I had it on? Is it loud or anything? I'm used to using it when I have my little microphones that plug into here that went out on me, so it plugs into my headset. So I'm using my webcam mic. Was that? I didn't even think about it. Was that fan very loud for y'all? Let me know. But yeah, you start aging it. 30 to 40% of the flavor comes from just your mash. You keeping your yeast happy and following certain sets of instructions and keeping things, nutrients, pH, all this, keep it right. And yeast sing, when they're happy, that you'll know it when you drink it, right? And especially in like a wine or a beer, because you're actually drinking the mash and the must or the beer, whatever. Um, but the same follows through to distilling it as well. So keeping everything, tight and in line definitely increases increases the quality of your product. So the more you can take notes, keep temperatures, try to keep your temperatures constant, try to, anything that you can do to keep the pH right. But you can overdo it, like earlier we were talking, remember who it was, maybe like Scully or somebody though that was talking about using some uh, baking soda to keep their pH up, and I can't remember who it was, but I was thinking it might have been later in fermentation than it was. It was actually in the middle. It was still at 1050. So probably a good time, maybe it was a good time. It was 3.6 or so pH. You probably could have gone along a little bit further, but if you'd used those oyster shells, little ounce provision and using these certain steps each time, and just, you know, make it a part of your process. Everything that you can do, see, every little thing you can do to make that yeast better, whether it be, you know, adding those oyster shells and keeping the pH up, or keeping the temperature more constant, or not stirring it up too much, or keeping, you know, under an air, you know, airlock, or there's so many things that you can do, keeping the nutrient levels proper, you know, and using nutrients versus not the right nutrients and the right amount of nutrients, not overdoing it, or not stirring it in the middle of fermentation, you know, after you're 2 weeks in or a week and a half in, stirring the shit out of it and oxygenating and making your yeast go back into reproduction when they should be just about to finish and things like that. You know, there's certain steps and things that you can, you know, do and eliminate. And if you can make it a little bit better here, a little bit better here, a little bit better here, that's that 30 or 40% that we're working with that I was talking about earlier. The rest, you know, the 60 to 80, right? This, you know, 20 to 40 is what you put into it. The 60 to 80 is the aging process, and what happens during the aging process. And it's not just the notes and the character and the flavors that the barrel adds as far as tannins, but there's a lot of chemical processes that are still esterification. You got acids and oils that are mixed together, and they esterify and create some, you know, polyphenols and other things that have good flavors, you know, and some bad flavors. So you'll make sure you do the right thing. But during the aging process, you know, you can age in a glass jar. You know, it's not all about the barrel, but that barrel does add a lot if you like, if you want that good smoky, tannin, rich, caramely. You know, I love whiskey. I can't say enough good about what a barrel can add to your grain, you know, spirit. So make that 20 to 40 the best you can. And when you put that shit in a fucking barrel and you age it properly, man, I'm telling you, you can make some stuff that's as good as anything you can buy off the shelf. And I kid you not. These big distilleries, they envy us. They can't make 50-gallon batches. You know, they can't make 30-gallon batches in small stills like we do and micro manage everything. It's in big, huge volumes. So it's much more difficult for them to make minor adjustments like we can. They can't do that. So that's where craft distilling comes in. Is you know, craft distilling can't be matched with huge, you know, commercial stills and production. You know, it's more about production when they do that. So there's certain things that we can do, and you can turn out as good a whiskey as you can fucking buy, um, if you got the time. Now I don't know many moonshiners that have 53-gallon barrels that they're willing to put in their basements for, you know, 6 to 8 years and let it mature. Most moonshiners sell that shit and get the evidence the fuck out the back door, you know. Um, but you know, we're trying to creep into distilling and getting away from that moonshine mentality and more into distilling and crafting on a small scale. And that's what the hobbyists do. And that's what I'm trying to teach and trying to bring a little bit of science into it. You know, you don't have to overladen it and try to impress people with big words and you know, you know, I love charts, you know, and I do read through a lot of very complex stuff, you know, talking about different amylose and cellulose that they were talking about earlier. I read through a lot of this shit, and it's very complicated. And I mean, I can throw a bunch of that up there and try to impress people with all this high level stuff, and you know, and why not everybody's interested in taking it to that level, and what I try to do is learn and read at that level and try to put it into more simpler terms to get you at an end product that's going to impress you and your friends and make your hobby enjoyable and safe. Safety is first. Going to Minnesota in the fall for work. I'm wanting to ship some shine to pass out to my coworkers. How would you recommend shipping it? Just like that. You can get these on, these are made for alcohol. You make sure you get the ones that are made for alcohol, because not all of them are. But short term is fine to store in this. Do not age in this, and do not let them sit for months and months and months and months and months on end. This is great for shipping, and when you receive it, put it in a jar, put it in glass, put it in a bottle. It's fine for shipping because you don't have to worry about it breaking. It weighs less, and it ships very well. And as soon as you receive it, tell them to put it in a pot, into a jelly jar or something. And yeah, keeping things clean. Absolutely. Mr. Winemaker knows, sanitary. I will say that a lot of moonshiners don't take the steps to keep things clean. You don't have to. And a lot of moonshiners are stuck on the have to, and you don't have to do a lot of things. You can turn out alcohol by putting cornmeal, pound of cornmeal, pound of sugar, gallon of water, stir it up, throw some bread yeast in there, forget about it, right? And you can turn out some okay shit. And if that's all you're interested in, that's all you have to do. Um, you can step it up to learn more about conversion of grains and amylose and alpha amylase and all the enzymes and all these things. And that they say, oh, I don't want to talk about that science. Well, when you get to that point, you're dealing with science. So if you want to make sugar shine or you want to make cornmeal shine, just go back to the recipe and replicate it. But I think most people want to learn to make a lot of different things. They want to make that tequila like we were talking about earlier. They want to get that that agave and that blue agave, and they want to get that yeast and that special blue yeast and make some pretty good stuff like Jeff does. And they want to make their own tequila. They want to get molasses and start them a little dunder pit and try to make their own rum. They want to make, get that column and them plates and create that high proof of vodka is what floats their boat. They want to, learn to make liquor and create what still do I need to make, and how can I create a gin basket to create some botanicals that will carry over. What special steel setups do I need for that? A lot of people want to do that. Not everybody just wants to make a corn liquor moonshine like the old days. That was done to make a living. It was done to sell liquor, generally in a place like I grew up in dry counties. When you couldn't buy liquor from the stores, you either had to drive, 30 miles, 40 miles to get it, or you made it, so, or you got it from the bootleggers, which we did all the above. But yeah, so, it's whether it's a necessity for some, like you grew up in Eastern Kentucky where there's no legal sales, and you either, bought moonshine, people did it as a living, or you drove, to Lexington or Winchester or over to Hayside or wherever to get it, legally. So, but yeah, I think, once you start learning to age it too, aging and proper aging has a lot of character to it. A lot of people have high expectations of what comes out of that nozzle on your steel. And really, the white dog that comes off is as raw a product as you're going to get. And it's not the best that you're going to get. It's not even that great. It can be good, but the aging process, even if it's in a jar, let the oils and acids esterify and work together and create some polyphenols and some interesting flavors and notes. Um, it helps a lot, and it mellows it out. Some people open up their jars and let some of the excuse me, damn, he's shot. Let some of the higher volatiles kind of evaporate off. Yeah, you're going to lose a little ethanol, but a lot of those higher um, higher volatile alcohols will evaporate first, right? So there is a point though that where you're going to lose alcohol, and it's just silly. But leaving it open for a day with just you can take your ring out and put your cheesecloth or something on that, or a paper towel, and just tighten it down a little bit, just so you don't get the flies and dust and shit in there. That I'm gonna take a drink first. Just keep shit out of it and let some of those higher volatiles kind of evaporate off. That's a good start. But letting it age in the jar helps a lot. Um, and aging it in a barrel. If you like that whiskey flavor and you want that, um, yeah, cleaning sucks. I should just leave that up there. Period. Um, it helps. It helps a lot. So get you some wood staves, barrel staves. They're great to get. They're cheap as fuck. If you got somebody that like, I'm lucky because I got a neighbor that makes furniture and makes little crafts and stuff with barrel staves, makes little wall plaques and stuff with them. So I get all the little chopped off little teeny leftovers that he has. But they're real cheap to buy. So if you ever around barrels and they got some broken up barrels that are busted up, and like, man, I mean, I know the barrels are just worth, just go in and say, hey, I know regular barrels are worth, 50, $100, but that one's all broken. What about that one over in the corner? It's busted up, man. How much you want for that? They were like, hell, man, those 10, $15. All right. And take those staves apart, chop them up, and the gray side that's been exposed to air, sand that shit down, plane it down, and take a torch and go all the way around that barrel stave and torch it good, and drop it in a jar like this. Man, it'll age a jar really well. Not as good as a barrel, no, but it does help, and it does give it some good flavor, and it'll take it to the next level. Now, if you can get you a Sandman or a well, I'm trying to think of who makes this one. This was Bad Mo or a Sandman barrel, and age it a couple of years in one of these. You can do that. I've got some 15-gallon barrels that I ain't gonna pick up. I got in my garage that I ain't gonna go pick up. They're nice, but the larger the barrel, the longer the time it takes. And these barrels take a little bit longer too. But if you get like a gallon or 2-gallon barrel, you can age within 6 months in those. Okay, 3 to 6 months. Gallon barrel, 3 months. It can overdo it. So buying smaller barrels like that and aging it in it, and really good, and it'll take your distillate to the next level, and it's awesome. So for beginners, you can be producing some really good stuff in no time at all. All right, I'm missing some questions here. Let me get back here. Hi, real talk. I love making all alcohol and barely drink, mostly smoke. Yeah, I do a little bit of both. It is a fun hobby though. I love it. Plugins for electric was all damaged. It's possible that they will have it in the fall. Yeah, yeah, that's what I heard. That they had some substations and power and stuff. Um, I really hope they do, Jeff. It was one of my favorite festivals. Even though I will say, God damn, if it wasn't hot the last 2 years down there. It's like fucking every time it's like the last 2 years there, man. It was like 96 degrees with 110 heat index. It's like maybe no, last year was like 106. 97 degrees, 106 index, and it's downtown, hot as fuck, and there's just pavement, downtown. And I, I I will say that it's a party, but I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to. Um, we have people watching. just keep that in mind. So, but it was pretty open. Had a good time. Did quite a bit of samples. Had a lot of legal distillers there. Me and old Roger went around and had I don't know, each of those legal distillers were handing out 2 or 3 samples each, and Roger and I, wait a minute, we did 2 or 3 samples, and then we did 2 or 3 more, trying to decide which one we liked best, and there was probably 6 or 8 legal, they're handing out samples, and by the time we got finished with them and working them, man, we'd probably done 30, 40 fucking shots, and that with a little bit that I'd smoked, man, I was speaking in tongue, man. I was I was in rare form. I had my old lady, man. She was there with me, helped me get around. I was like, man, I'm fucked up. I don't know where the fuck I am. I was pretty fucked up. Man. I was torn up, but it was a good time, man. A lot of brothers were there. It was a really good time, and no trouble. Everybody's happy and having a good time. Even some of us that go at it um, online and stuff. When it comes to festivals and stuff, and we're all there together, we can put a lot of that behind us for the time being and have a good time without ruining the fucking festival with a bunch of fighting and redneck bullshit. So we try to keep that to a minimum, um, and we've been good. I mean, all the festivals that I've been to. Um, I can only think maybe of one fight that I saw and possibly one that I was about to be involved in, and that was me because somebody really pushed me to the limits with some things that they said. Um, but at the same time, it was somebody that I had respect for. So, and they were really, really, really drunk, saying some stupid shit. And, you at a point where I'm either going to kill this motherfucker, I'm going to let it slide. And, it's what am I going to do, and I let it slide. I think I made the right decision. Um, but that was the only one time, that's happened, and um, been to dozens of festivals. So um, it's a good time, and everybody should come out and join us and have a good time with us. They are a lot of fun. They are a lot of fun. Yeah, my grandmother made wine, and my family. I've got some moonshiners back in the history of my family. I wasn't aware of it. I knew that my grandmother made wine, but most of my her parents and her family were like bankers and shit. Were really, they had a funeral home. Um, but I did find out that they did trade a lot of those embalming bottles to moonshiners for a little bit of product. Those moonshiners would clean out those embalming jars and use those to put their moonshine in, because I guess getting bottles and glass and stuff back in the old days, and I'm talking late 1800s, early 1900s, was pretty tough. My grandmother was a call, and her family, I guess Willie Clay Call is a famous moonshiner. Him and Junior Johnson were best buddies, and Willie Clay was called the Uncatchable. So I didn't know until later on in life that I'm related to Willie Clay Call, and Willie P. Call is my grandmother's dad. So they were pretty close. So yeah, read about the Uncatchable. He was a badass. He when Ginger Johnson started car racing and stuff, he's like, "Nah, I help you build motors and stuff, but I ain't interested in running a track, man. I want to outrun cops." They never caught him. He never got caught. Junior can't say that. Yeah. Could y'all hear my fan? Nobody answered me. No, sound is great. Okay, good, good. Appreciate it. So that's how far behind I am. I'm sorry, I get a little bit long-winded here. But yeah, we'll try to wrap things up. Been a pretty good show tonight. Glad everybody came out. Good having y'all with us. I hope I answered everybody's question. Well, what am I drinking? I'm drinking 135 proof weeded Bloody Butcher Sour Mash and tequila, and I think might have had a little peach brandy early. Yeah, I agree. That does take a lot of the fun out of it and deal with that kind of drama and bullshit. All right, now Jeff, on yours, do you use clearing agents or do you just? I mean, we're not dealing with a lot of other than just yeast flocculants. So, have you noticed a degradation in quality if you run it a little bit milky as opposed to really, really clear? Because I've never used clearing agents. I'm not sure for solo. Do you use clearing agents in your wine or you just let it sit? Yeah, you definitely want to use that blue yeast. That it's made specifically for tequila. It's hands down, flavor wise, everything. You definitely want to get you some of that. Yeah, you wanna do your tequila fermentations and your blue yeast likes warmer temperatures. It likes 80s, mid 80s. So 80 to 85, I think is optimal for that blue yeast, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff. So yeah, it's a summertime thing. Or if you live in hotter climates, you might be able to get by with it a little earlier. But yeah, it likes warm. Eliza's back. Man, Eliza has this anal. She likes ass eating. uh, she likes ass, man. I don't know if she lets you eat her box or not, man. She's into ass. She likes Santa ass. What's going on, brother? Freaks come out at night, baby. I love them, man. As long as they troll and say funny shit like that, I ain't gonna fucking ban them or block them. But when they start with the racial shit and get really far out there, I fucking get rid of it. But I love them, man. They're funny. I enjoy the humor. You want $50? Well, there's certain things you got to do to get that. What's up? I ain't bald, motherfucker. That's a headset hiding my hair. I got all kinds of fucking hair, motherfucker. What are you talking about? What's going on, Shane? Mouse. I shouldn't I? Yep, I agree with him. I agree with him. Yep, I made them all little perverts. This is fun. Diddy Santa. And he said that. Oh, it's funny. That's funny shit, man. I appreciate y'all. It's fun. I appreciate y'all coming in at closing time and not during the whole thing. If you came in early, I probably would have to fucking kick you. But yeah, it's funny you say it on the internet, but come to a fucking festival and say it. See what happens. But I do appreciate humor. Tell him, Eliza. Get him. Ass eating lies ain't gonna put up with your shit, rodent. Why am I buying subs? But everybody here is real. That's right, Liza. You tell them. I don't give a fuck. Well, love y'all. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. See y'all Wednesday, trolls. Come in about exactly about 10:50. You can start, and we can have fun, and we can have laughs as we get ready to log off. What's going on, Dan? Dan comes in right at the fucking closing time. We need to get you in here, Dan. Yes, his grammar sucks, and he sucks, but we're not going to talk about what he does with children on the side. Him and Joe probably talk about their hairy legs and shit. I appreciate it, Amazon. Yeah, we're getting pretty popular. We're getting the numbers up. We're getting quite a few people liking us, and we're going to keep on keeping on and having a good time and spreading the love and the knowledge, man. But we definitely need to get Mr. Gray in here. Have you got your artwork done, brother? Are you done? I bought my watermelon this week. Oh, I'm hoping y'all. Yeah, we gotta have this good night shot. And this is for the trolls too. Love y'all. And as long as you keep it funny like that, keep it clean and keep the racial shit and keep all the gaiety and all that shit and all out, keep it fun, keep it clean. We can have a good time. I enjoy a good laugh and trolls give me a good laugh. So and unless you get like really mean racial, I don't go for that kind of shit. But if you just, make fun of my bald head and what a perv I am, hey, I can laugh with you. I'll agree with you. Richard, you did the same, brother. And we will see you all Wednesday. We hope y'all have a great weekend. And if you got some questions, save them up. If it can't wait till Wednesday, jump in the Moonshine Militia. We'll take care of your questions there. Got a lot of knowledgeable people there. Dan, um, hang around. I'll send you a link. I need to talk to you. I need to get you in here, man. Art, good seeing you, brother. Thanks for tuning in. Jeff, take care, brother. Richard, y'all take care. Lisa, hang around. I got to talk to you as well. Roy, take care, brother. But Dan, I need to talk to you. I need to get you in here this next week if you got your artwork done for the farm to bottle. And Lisa, I need to talk to you about something personal. So hang out and everybody shine on. And we will see you Wednesday. Have a great weekend. Don't forget, tune in Tuesday. Check out my buddy Frade. He's got live mic night. It allows everybody in, kind of like a shit show environment, but not quite as wild. And they do cover a little bit of content and stuff. And Thursdays, Lisa comes on, and her and the gals they talk shine. They talk a lot about plants and tinctures and other things like that. I think her and Mark also have things going on Monday about canning and preserving and things of that nature. So it's we're trying to put together a lot of good content aside from the shit show. It might not be so good, but it's a lot of fun. But we're trying to put a lot of educational content together for everybody, and we're trying to expand, a little bit beyond just moonshining, like tinctures and stuff, and a lot of plants and stuff to help, holistic medicine and stuff. So tune in Thursdays with Lisa. Her and some of the gals get together. They're very knowledgeable on a lot of that kind of thing. If you're into that, it's pretty interesting stuff. So we got a lot. Yeah, we diversify. We've got a lot of things going on here at Moonshine Militia. So we appreciate y'all tuning in. Go to Pod Distilling 101 page. You'll see it on the link at the very top right. Follow and hit the like button in YouTube. Make sure you all follow, hit the like, and hit notify. That way, when we come on, you'll get a little notification in your emails and stuff on your phone, and you'll know when we come on. Generally 8 o'clock every just about every night. We're going to try to make it so we have something going every night for somebody. If you want to jump in here and listen, you can get some, have a little bit of fun and learn a little bit. So with that, I'm going to say peace out, shine on, and we will see you all Wednesday. Have a great weekend that's left of it.